Chapter 287. Yi Chun checked old Fu and Murong Yang's bodies again, but he still could not find the tiger bone flower. He guessed that the tiger bone flower might still be on the spiritual medicine mountain. He simply gave up and walked out of the Maojiao restaurant in disappointment. He flicked his finger to cast a fireball spell, and a violent explosion came from behind him. Then, it turned into a sea of fire. The next morning, Su Yuhan woke Yi Chun up early in the morning and urged him to leave. She had been scared by Murong Kuei and the rest 2 nights ago, so she left immediately. She went to wake up Meng Meng, the little girl, and waited on her to wash her face, brush her teeth, and eat breakfast. When she was finally done, it was already 9 o'clock in the morning. The group officially set off. Longxi was located in the southeast of Gan Province, on the upper reaches of the Wei River, in the middle of the Lus Plateau. It was bordered by Tongwei County in the east and Wushan in the south. Since ancient times, it had been a battleground for military strategists and was also known as the Four Fortress Kingdom. There were 10 towns and 8 villages under it. Yi Chun was heading to Wanshan Town, which was one of the 10 towns. According to the soul search that he had performed on Su Tao earlier, the Ghost Rider Sex Mountain Gate was in Wanshan Town. Meanwhile, Wanshan Town was approximately 300 kilometers away from Longxi Station. Yi Chun brought them to the station and bought a ticket to Wanshan Town. To prevent the little girl from starving on the way, Yi Chun went to the supermarket to buy many snacks for her before he got into the car. He placed all of them in his storage ring. Meanwhile, it was the 3rd day of the medicinal pill exchange at the Murong family. Murong He arrived at the medicinal pill exchange with the help of his walking stick. A young man in a suit came to greet him immediately. "Greetings, old master. Where's Yang?" Murong He squinted and observed the crowd far away. However, he did not see Murong Yang at all. He could not help but frown. The young man in the suit said respectfully, "Old master, young master went out at around 8 o'clock last night and hasn't returned yet. Where did he go?" Murong He asked in a deep voice. The young man shook his head. "I'm not sure about that, but Elder Fu from the Spiritual Medicine Mountain went out with young master." Hearing this, Murong He came to a realization and guessed where Murong Yang had gone. He said rather worriedly, "He hasn't returned for the entire night? Give Yang a call and ask." The young man nodded and took out his phone to call Murong Yang immediately. However, nobody picked up. Murong He's expression slowly turned grim. For some reason, he had a bad feeling about this. He immediately ordered, "Send everyone out to look for them. They must be found." After more than an hour, finally, a burly man ran in panting and stammered, Young master went to Maojiao restaurant last night, but what?" Murong He hit the ground with his walking stick. The burly man wiped his sweat and said, "But the Mao family restaurant caught on fire last night. Nothing is left inside, and young master and Elder Fu are gone as well. Bring me there." Murong He's expression changed slightly. Half an hour later, a car arrived at the entrance of the Maojiao restaurant. There were 2 police cars parked at the entrance, and the police had cordoned off the area. The fire had been put out long before dawn, but the restaurant had been turned into ruins. Murong He walked out of the carriage with a grim expression. Nobody dared to stop him wherever he went. When he walked into the restaurant and saw the 2 skeletons on the ground, his whole body suddenly stiffened and he didn't move at all. Murong He bent down and caressed one of the skeletons with his hands. Sorrow filled his face. "Yang." At that moment, a middle-aged man in a police uniform walked in. He said respectfully, "Old Master Murong, your grandson was unfortunately killed in the fire. My condolences. Don't worry, we'll definitely get to the bottom of this. There's no need to investigate." Murong He suddenly turned his head and glared at him. His eyes were bloodshot. "I'll handle this myself. You guys don't have to interfere." The middle-aged policeman nodded lightly and turned around to leave. After he left, Murong He's old face was replaced by a ferocious expression. "You killed my Yang, I'll never forgive you. I'll kill you even if you run to the end of the world." He knew that it was Yi Chun who did it without even thinking. Before this, Murong Yang had used his magic tool to fight Yi Chun. However, something happened in the blink of an eye. Who else could it be if not Yi Chun? Lock down all the train stations in Longxi immediately. Interrogate everyone with the surname Yi. We can't let that brat escape, no matter what. At the Murong clan's ancestral residence, Zhang Mingqi and the rest stood on the second floor and looked at the people below in a condescending manner. Zhang Zijian could not help but ask, "What's going on today? Why isn't Murong Yang here? Yao Bingwei is gone too. That brat Yi isn't here either." Zhang Haoshuan, who was standing aside, could not help but say, "I think Murong Yang is going to fight that brat. There's going to be a good show." He could not help but look at Zhang Zijian as he spoke to this point. He could not help but scoff when he saw Zhang Zijian looking worried. At the front desk of the hotel that Yi Chun had booked earlier, Murong Shui pulled Yushasha and asked the lady at the front desk, "Where's the guest in room A302? He just checked out." The lady at the front desk smiled lightly. Yushasha was rather disappointed to hear that. "Huh? Yi Chun and the rest left just like that?" Murong Shui fell into deep thought and mumbled, "This guy's smart. He knows that he's offended Brother Yang, so he ran away." Northeast Liao Province, Gourd Island. In a sparsely decorated and remote room, it was completely dark. However, at this time, a shout could be heard from time to time. "Let me out. Is anyone there?" It was a man's voice. However, his voice was filled with anger, helplessness, and even anxiety. At that moment, the sound of a lock being unlocked came from outside. A skinny young man pushed the door open and walked in. He was holding a lunchbox in his hand that was half filled with food. "Pa!" The dark room lit up. It was a small room that was less than 50 square meters. It looked like a warehouse with many plastic boxes placed around. There were many banners hanging on the wall. "Blue Sky Plan will make you rich overnight. Today's failure is tomorrow's success. Believe that the Blue Sky Plan will make you $1 million a month. Seize the opportunity and control your life. Try to be the second Ma Yun and the second Li Ka Cheng." There were countless banners that looked like they had been injected with steroids. Meanwhile, a young man with messy hair and a face full of stubble was sitting against the wall. His limbs were tied to the chair behind him, so he could not move at all. The skinny young man walked over and slammed the lunchbox on the table before the unkempt young man. "Time to eat." The unkempt young man only opened his eyes then. Perhaps he was not used to the bright light. He said after closing his eyes, "Brother, can you let me go? I really have something urgent to attend to. I can't waste my time here." "I can't." The skinny young man shook his head and lit a cigarette. He squatted on the ground and said while sticking his butt out, "My boss said that he won't let you go unless you agree to join our Blue Sky group." Hearing that, the unkempt young man was furious. "Join my ass. Don't think that I don't know that you guys are just a pyramid scheme. As soon as I join, you guys won't let me go unless you suck my blood dry." As he thought to this point, he could not help but feel like crying. "Oh, why am I, Yang Tian, so unlucky? I've been picking up trash for a month. I've either slept under bridges or on the streets. I've finally arrived at Haludio, and I'm not far from G Province. In the blink of an eye, I've been kidnapped by a pyramid scheme. They've even brainwashed me every day to get me to join that *T Blue Sky group. I'm a beggar. You guys won't even let a beggar go. Don't you have any dignity? They even took away the 38 yuan that I collected from picking up trash. They said that it's the membership fee. Aren't they shameless?" The more Yang Tian thought about it, the angrier he got. He had been out for a month. Back then, he had promised Yi Chun that he would arrive at Changbai Mountain within 3 months. Not only did he have to get there, but he also had to rush back from there. However, more than a month had passed. Not only did he fail to get to Changbai Mountain, but he was also imprisoned by the pyramid scheme. P.S. I've made up for the last 2 chapters. I'll update at night. I've been up all night. I can't open my eyes. Chapter 288. All the mountains in this world originated from Kunlun Mountain. Therefore, Kunlun Mountain was also known as the Mountain of Ancestors. It was the #1 divine mountain in China. Meanwhile, the mountains in Longxi belonged to Kunlun Mountain, a branch of the Qinling mountain system. It was noon in the Wanshan town in Longxi. The forest was dense, and the weeds were half a person's height. There were hardly any people around. However, a childish voice came at that moment. "Huh, huh." Ming Ming stood aside and could not stop waving a sword in her hand. She was even making all sorts of noises. Her movements were humorous and childish. Meanwhile, the long sword in her hand was Yi Wushuang's great thunder sword. It did not seem big, but it weighed over 50 kilograms. However, the little girl was holding it effortlessly as if she was holding a tree branch. The little girl had yet to cultivate, so she could not use the great thunder sword's function. She was purely playing with it. Meanwhile, Su Yuhan took out a handkerchief and walked to the pond to wash her hands while bending over. Her alluring but was outlined delicately. Yichen lay on a big rock with his hands as a pillow. He looked at the mother and daughter while smiling. Enjoyment filled his eyes. What could be more blissful than having a beautiful wife on his left and a daughter on his right? No, that was it. Su Yuhan walked over with a clean handkerchief. She shouted at the little girl who was sweating profusely. Ming Ming, that's enough. Stop playing. Come here. She rolled her eyes at Yi-chun as she spoke to this point. She said angrily, What's wrong with you? Ming Ming is a kid. Why is she playing with a sword? What if she hurts herself? Yi-chun was speechless. She's my daughter. I don't know what to do. Moreover, the little girl eats medicinal pills like candy. She's not that fragile. What? Do you have something to say? Su Yuhan glared at him. No. Yi-chun shook his head immediately. His wife was the most important person in the world. How would he dare to say anything? The little girl ran over with the great thunder sword. She was panting, but she did not look tired at all. Look at you. You only know how to play. You look like a kitten, Su Yuhan scolded jokingly and wiped her face and hands with a handkerchief. Yichen took out 2 bottles of mineral water from his storage ring immediately and passed them to the mother and daughter. The little girl said pitifully after taking a sip, Daddy, I'm hungry. At that moment, Yi Wushuang walked over from far away. He was carrying a wild rabbit that was alive and kicking. It was approximately 4 to 5 kilograms and had gray fur. Wow, little rabbit? The little girl's attention was immediately attracted. She ran to Yi Wushuang immediately. Uncle Wushuang, where did you catch this bunny? Looking at how cute the little girl was, a smile appeared on Yi Wushuang's cold face. I caught it when I was walking around. After saying that, he handed the hare to the little fellow. The little fellow gently held the wild rabbit in her arms, and a strange scene happened. The wild rabbit that was struggling suddenly became quiet and motionless in the little fellow's arms. Daddy, Mommy, little rabbit is so cute. The little girl was so happy that she could not stop giggling. Yichen said without even thinking about it, Aren't you hungry? You can eat this rabbit. Daddy will cook for you and your daughter. I'll grill some delicious rabbit meat for you too. The 2 beauties glared at him angrily as soon as he was done speaking. Daddy, little rabbit is so spicy. Why are you eating it? The little girl hugged the wild rabbit tightly and said angrily while pouting. Su Yuhan chimed in. The mother and daughter were on the same side at that moment. That's right. You're too cruel. Yichen glanced at Yi Wushuang, who was standing aside. Both of them were speechless at that moment. Eating a rabbit is cruel? Will you guys say that I'm cruel if I make you guys eat dragon liver and phoenix gallbladder later? Then let's have some snacks. Yichen shook his head in between tears and laughter. He took out the snacks that he had bought earlier from his storage ring and distributed them to the mother, daughter, and Yi Wushuang. Seeing that they were almost done, Yichen set off again with the mother and daughter. Over half an hour later, they arrived at a spacious place. Compared to the lush forest earlier, the scenery before them was rather creepy. There was only black soil as far as their eyes could see. Meanwhile, there was a bare eagle cliff before them. It was hundreds of meters tall, blocking their way completely. Meanwhile, there was black energy lingering at the peak of the eagle cliff. The black energy did not disperse, and not a single bird could be seen flying past. It was miasma that was extremely poisonous. Yi-chun, is there a dead end? How are you going to lead the way? Su Yuhan glared at Yi-chun with killing intent in her eyes. Don't be afraid, wifey. I have my ways. Yi-chun chuckled softly as a gleam flashed in his hand. It was the almighty killer sword. As soon as the flying sword appeared, it grew a few times larger like a giant sword. Wifey, I'll let you enjoy flying today. Yichen stretched his arm out to Su Yuhan. Tui. Sensing the ambiguity in Yichen's words, Su Yuhan's pretty face flushed. She spat angrily, but she grabbed Yichen's hand anyway. Before she could react, Yichen grabbed her and stepped on the almighty killer sword. He turned into a sword gleam and flew far away. Ah! She moaned by instinct and hugged Yichen tightly. She retreated into Yichen's embrace like a quail. She was shaking, and her chest was like a frightened bunny. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Open your eyes now. Yichen comforted her and reduced the speed of the sword kinesis flight. Su Yuhan opened her eyes slowly, seeing that his parents had abandoned him. The little fellow was stunned and suddenly burst into tears. Daddy, Mommy doesn't want me anymore. At that moment, Yu Wushuang picked Mingming up and stepped onto the great thunder sword directly. Subsequently, he chased after them. To let Su Yuhan get used to it, Yichun flew a few rounds on purpose. He only landed on Eagle Cliff when Su Yuhan called for him to stop. Although that was the case, Su Yuhan's body was drenched in sweat. Her clothes clung tightly to her body, accentuating her exquisite body. Yichun lifted his eyes to look around. There were cliffs all around him, and they looked like ferocious beasts that were watching him from the side. Meanwhile, the place where they were standing was like a bowl-shaped concave terrain. There was a man-made cave in the stone wall before Yichun. Yichun walked over slowly and came to a realization after taking a good look. Clearly, that was the entrance to the Ghost Rider Sect Mountain Gate. Judging from the marks, it must have been dug by Zhang Yuan and the rest. Yichun, is this the Ghost Rider Sect Mountain Gate that you were talking about? Su Yuhan walked over and took a look. She wanted to take a few steps closer by instinct. Don't move. Yichun suddenly pulled her back. There's a formation set up ahead. You'll activate the formation as soon as you go in, and you'll be attacked. To prove what he said, he picked up a rock and tossed it forward. He picked up a stone and threw it in front of him. The stone flew less than a meter before it suddenly burst into flames. Su Yuhan's face turned pale, and she retreated a few steps back immediately. What should we do? Yichun chuckled softly. It's just a formation. How hard can it be for your husband to break it? Chapter 289. Ghost Rider Sect. Yichun found out from Su Tao's memory that the sect came from ancient times. It was a long time ago and was suspected to have been founded in the Shang dynasty. The sect was an expert in the ghost control technique. They dominated a region back then, but nobody knew why they disappeared until Zhang Yuan discovered them. There was a formation at the Ghost Rider Sect's mountain gate, so it was difficult for ordinary people to enter. Therefore, Zhang Yuan wanted to use her as a blood sacrifice to break the formation after finding out that she had a pure Yin body. However, in Yichen's opinion, it would not be difficult to break such a formation even at its peak. Moreover, after so many years, the formation's power was almost exhausted. 6 ding, 6 armor formation? Yichun chuckled softly and lifted his hand to perform a set of hand seals to break the seal. However, at that moment, Su Yuhan suddenly walked to the core of the formation. Just when he wanted to stop her, he realized that the formation was useless against her. This, Yichun thought to himself and went after her immediately. He was worried that something might happen to her. Yi Wushuang went after them while carrying Mingming. This time, Yichun could see it more clearly. With every step Su Yuhan took, the formation would weaken a little. How is this possible? Yichun could not help but be shocked. One had to know that the Ghost Rider Sect's mountain gate array had already been activated. Unless one was an array master or a person who created the array, it was impossible for them not to be attacked by the array. 10 minutes later, Su Yuhan had already walked into the formation, and the group entered a long swimming lane. Whoosh! The candles around the walls suddenly lit up, leading to the end of the swimming lane. The walls around the swimming lane were engraved with all kinds of scary ghost faces. Su Yuhan suddenly stopped walking. She looked puzzled. Yichun, I think this place is rather familiar. Have you been here before? Yichun asked. No. Su Yuhan shook her head lightly and said in a daze, It's my first time here, but I don't know why I find this place familiar as if I've been here before. At this point, she paused for a moment before continuing, and I keep feeling that something inside is calling out to me. As soon as he said that, Yi Chen's expression changed slightly. He could not help but turn his head to glance at Yi Wushuang behind him. They saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. At that moment, Su Yuhan walked forward again, and she was walking faster and faster. "Slow down, Yuhan," Yi Chen reminded her and caught up with her. More than 10 minutes later, the group reached the end of the passageway. In front of them was a heavy stone door. There were all kinds of patterns carved on the stone door. It looked like a map of hell. There were a few twisted characters on the stone door. Shockingly, it was, "Anyone who enters this door will die." Under the illumination of the surrounding candlelight, these 5 words were faintly green, giving off an indescribable, eerie feeling. Meng Meng pounced into Yi Chen's embrace, feeling rather scared. "Daddy, Wushuang, open the door," Yi Chen said. Yi Wushuang nodded and took 2 steps forward. Subsequently, he pressed his hand on the stone door. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't push it open. "Allow me." She stretched her hand out and turned the base of the first candle first, then the 6 candles base. "That's right," Su Yuhan said all of a sudden and walked straight to a row of candles. Boom! With a loud bang, the previously extremely heavy stone door automatically opened with a loud bang. A heavy and oppressive aura came from the crack of the door. Su Yuhan was going in. Yi Chen pulled her back immediately and said in his deep voice, "How did you know about the mechanism on the stone door?" "I've no idea." Su Yuhan looked lost. She shook her head and said, "There seemed to be a flash of inspiration in my head, and I figured it out." Yi Chen's expression turned grim upon hearing that. "Yuhan, let's go back. We're not going in." His instinct told him that something was wrong. Su Yuhan had never been here before, and she was immortal. However, the Ghost Rider sect mountain gate formation that gave Bai Zhan Yuan a headache was useless against her. She even seemed to be very familiar with this place. She even knew about the mechanism on the stone door. To be on the safe side, he decided not to go in. He would come back alone at most. "No." Su Yuhan, who had always been obedient, shook her head at that moment. She looked at him with a begging expression. "Yi Chen, don't go. The feeling is getting stronger. I must go in. Don't worry. I'll be fine." "Sure, but I'll walk in front." Yi Chen nodded and took a step forward. He walked through the gap of the stone door while grabbing Su Yuhan tightly at the same time. An eerie wind blew. A dim stone room came into sight. It was over 300 meters wide like a hall. There were hundreds of luminous pearls embedded in the walls around. However, everyone had their eyes on the stone platform in the middle of the stone room. The stone platform was merely 3 meters tall. It was entirely red, as if it was drenched in fresh blood. Meanwhile, there were some gigantic bronze cauldrons placed around it. The bronze cauldrons were of different shapes. There were all sorts of birds, beasts, insects, and fishes carved on them. Emerald flames were coming out of the cauldrons at the moment, giving the entire stone room an eerie feeling. There were countless skeletons scattered under its feet. There were humans and beasts, but most of them had already decayed. It was an altar. Yi Chen's pupils shrunk slightly. The so-called altar was a tool that was used for sacrificial activities. Sacrificial activities existed in the most primitive society on Earth. It was usually a prayer activity that people performed to show respect to God. Especially during the feudal period, sacrifices were often made. These sacrifices could be grains, livestock, or even people. The most typical example was during the reign of King Zhou of Shang, who used living people as sacrifices. Even in the cultivation world, this kind of sacrificial ceremony still existed, but most of them were evil methods, and the objects of the sacrificial ceremony were mostly demons. Yi Chen had witnessed it with his own eyes. An evil sect had destroyed a stellar zone and used tens of billions of people in that stellar zone as a sacrifice to summon an extraterrestrial demon. Su Yuhan wanted to walk to the altar by instinct, but Yi Chen held onto her tightly. He accidentally stepped on a mechanism with his left foot. Kaka! The ground immediately trembled, and the entire stone chamber began to tremble. The next moment, not far away from the altar, waves of black gas emerged. As soon as the black gas rose into the air, it turned into black shadows. Illusory faces appeared on the black shadows, accompanied by all kinds of strange cries. All of a sudden, the entire stone chamber seemed to have turned into a ghost town. Hundreds of ghosts were circling around, wailing and howling. Yichun protected Su Yuhan behind him by instinct. He. The spirits that filled the air lingered in the stone chamber. All of a sudden, they charged at Yichun with an eerie wind. Chapter 290. The Genius Nanny in the City. Chapter 290. Tens of thousands of ghosts worshipped the strange mural. Urban Romance. Jikikums. Add a bookmark. Recommend this book. Chapter 290. Tens of thousands of ghosts worshipped the strange mural, facing the many ghosts that were charging at him. They were like a tsunami. Yichun frowned slightly. He sensed that the resentment in the ghosts was too powerful. Moreover, they seemed to have grown. He could not help but be shocked. However, he was just shocked. It was impossible for them to hurt him. A black flag appeared in Yichun's hand as he thought to this point. Just when he was going to put the ghosts away, Su Yuhan's voice came from behind him all of a sudden. Yichun knew. He could not help but turn his head to look. He saw Su Yuhan looking at him with a begging expression while biting her lip. Subsequently, she got rid of his hand and walked to him. Yuhan, Yichun's lips moved slightly. In the next second, the ghosts that were covering the sky suddenly stopped at the same time as if they had received some order. At that moment, they stopped growling. Even the hostility and resentment in them had weakened significantly. They were hovering in the air and observing Su Yuhan quietly. What? Yichun's expression turned serious as he looked at the scene before him in slight shock. In the next second, the ghosts landed on the ground and knelt before Su Yuhan at the same time. They were crying as if they were meeting their emperor. To be exact, they were whimpering. Tens of thousands of ghosts worshipped the ghosts. Such a scene was just too strange. No matter how calm Yichun was, he could not help but be stunned by what he saw. Yi Wushuang walked to Su Yuhan by instinct. Wushuang, there's no need. Su Yuhan shook her head and said with a blank look in her eyes, they won't hurt me. Although that was the case, Yichun and Yi Wushuang dared not let their guard down. Subsequently, she lifted her head to look at the dark ghosts kneeling before her. She said in a deep voice, I don't know why, but I feel like crying too when I hear you guys crying. Sob, sob, sob. Gusts of weeping wind blew even more fiercely. The spirits stuck their heads to the ground and let out sorrowful cries, causing the cold stone chamber to be filled with a trace of sorrow. Get up, don't cry. Su Yuhan said with reddened eyes. His voice fell. The spirits stood up one after another, then retreated to the side and remained motionless, creating a path. Looking along the passageway, he saw a skeleton throne behind the altar. The throne was made entirely out of human bones. Su Yuhan's face turned pale when she saw that. Master, there are paintings on the stone wall. Yi Wushuang suddenly said. Yichun looked at the stone wall before him by instinct when he heard that. Under the illumination of the luminous pearl, strange murals came into view. The murals were very lifelike. The scene in the first painting seemed to be a deep and serene wasteland. The wasteland sky was dark. There was no sun, no moon, and only piles of bones as far as the eye could see. The empty eye sockets of these skeletons emitted a dark green light, like a will-o'-the-wisp. Meanwhile, there were all sorts of strange plants growing on the wasteland. There was a plant that looked like a cactus that was approximately the height of a human. There were all sorts of tentacles on it, and there were vaguely resentful ghost faces on it. There was a white skeleton giant that looked like an ape that was 10 feet tall. Reminder, please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading, it's over 10 meters tall, and it's dragging a mountain with one hand as it stands on the wasteland. Is that an undead? Yichun's expression was extremely serious. The so-called undead was actually something that was different from ghosts. People only knew that a person's soul would turn into a ghost after death, and their body would turn into a zombie if it rotted. However, they had no idea that even if their body rotted and only a skeleton was left, the skeleton would have consciousness and life again. Yichun did not expect to see such a scene on Earth. Moreover, it was in the so-called Ghost Rider sect Mountain Gate. Yichun thought to this point. Yichun was slightly fearful of the Ghost Rider sect now. He had his eyes on the second mural again. Compared to the previous mural, this one was not as strange. It was a beautiful scene with beautiful mountains and clear waters. Meanwhile, there was a young lady who was approximately 16 or 17 years old in an ancient costume playing the guqin in a small, exquisite pavilion. It looked like a paradise on earth. The young lady wore a veil, and her hair was tied into a bun behind her. Her long hair was like a waterfall, and her delicate hands that were placed on the strings were fair like jade. The young lady had a cold aura, and her eyes were extremely deep. At first glance, she looked like a peerless enchantress that could charm the world. But at a second glance, she looked like an empress who ruled the world. Yichen could not help but look at Su Yuhan next to him by instinct as he watched to this point. He had a feeling that the young lady in the painting looked similar to Su Yuhan. Was that a coincidence? Yichen clenched his fists tightly as a chill rose within him. He feared the Ghost Rider sect a little more now. It was too strange. Thousands of ghosts worshipped her, and then there was the young lady in the painting. He suppressed his emotions and looked at the third mural again. The person in the mural was still the young lady who was playing the guqin earlier. However, she was in a dark palace at the moment, sitting on a white bone throne. There were ghostly fires floating around her. Meanwhile, there was a sea of people kneeling before her. There was no end to them as far as one could see. Some of the black silhouettes were similar in height to humans, but all of them had green faces and fangs. Some of them were even 300 meters tall like giants. Yichen squinted. Is that a demon or a demon? Or a ghost? Meanwhile, Murongyang was dead. Not only that, he was killed by someone. Murongyang was dead. When someone spread the news, it stirred a storm in Ganzhou. It was no different from an earthquake. One must know that the Murong clan was the leader of Ganzhou. Meanwhile, Murongyang was the Murong clan's young master. He was favored by the Murong clan's pillar, Muronghe. Now that someone dared to kill Murongyang, was that a declaration of war against the Murong clan and Muronghe, the illuminating god almighty in the spell world? Trash, a bunch of trash. In the Murong clan's ancestral residence in Longxi, the old Murong, he looked at the Murong clan's upper echelon kneeling before him with an extremely grim expression. My Murong family has mobilized everyone, yet we still haven't caught that brat. What the hell are you all doing? Hearing this, one of the Murong clan's upper echelons, Murong Yuan, said weakly, "We've locked down all the transportation hubs in Longxi as per your request. We've even asked the county government to send police to help us, but we can't find Yi." That's right. We also heard that Yi Chun is close to a lady named Yu Sha and a hooligan named Ma Chong. We arrested both of them after that and interrogated them for 2 hours. However, we found nothing. Another Murong clan's upper echelon, Murong Nan, said in fear. Murong he threw a cup at them and broke one of their heads. He smirked and said, "So what do you mean? Yang er died for nothing?" He was heartbroken to think that his beloved Murong Yang had died and that he had to send off his son before him. Old man, since this person could kill the late-stage Dao initiation realm young Master Yang, he must be at least at the peak of the Dao initiation realm. He might even be... Murong Yuan hesitated. Murong he laughed out of extreme anger. Or what? Maybe he's like me, a spirit realm warrior? Murong Yuan did not say a word. I don't care if this person is an illuminating god or not. No matter what, he killed Yang he must die. Murong he said again. Murong then pondered for a moment and said all of a sudden, "Old master, I'm guessing that Yi hasn't left Longxi yet because we found out that he's bringing me along. Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Even if my wife and daughter want to leave, they will leave by car. It's impossible for them to walk." He paused as he spoke to this point and suggested, "I heard that the Yi Brad is close to Yushasha. Why don't we use Yushasha to threaten Yichun? Let's see if he'll show up." "Sure." Muronghe's expression softened as ruthlessness flashed through his eyes. At the same time, send him a challenge letter in my name. Tell him that I, Muronghe, will fight this person on the Longxi River in 3 days. If he doesn't dare to come, I'll kill the little girl named you to vent my anger. If he dares to come, I'll kill him before everyone in Ganzhou. I'll let them know that as long as I'm alive, nobody is allowed to challenge my Murong clan. Murong, he was going to fight Yi Chun on the Longxi River. 3 days later, as the Murong clan's challenge letter spread, Ganzhou was stirred. Countless people had shock on their faces. Apart from being shocked, countless people went to the hall to discuss the grudge between the two parties. When they found out that Yi Chun was the murderer who killed Murong Yang and the spiritual medicine master, Old Fu, they were so shocked that they could not speak. One must know that Murong Yang was a spell master on mastery stage Tao initiation. Who below, illuminating God, could kill him? Could this young man named Yi Chun be a spell master too? Apart from being shocked, the people became excited when that thought popped up. If that was the case, would they not have the opportunity to witness the battle between the two illuminating God in the spell world? At that moment, countless people rushed to Longxi, on the spiritual medicine mountain. After hanging up the phone, Yao Bingyue sat hard on the couch. There was shock and disbelief on her pretty face. Murong, he is challenging Yi Chun. Yi Chun is the one who killed Murong Yang and Old Fu. That means that Yi Chun is at least a peak stage Tao initiation spellmaster. He might even be an illuminating God almighty. Her face turned pale as she thought to this point. Regret grew in her heart gradually. I lied to him. I even sent Old Fu to kill him. If he comes to take revenge on me, no. She suddenly shook her head hard. He definitely won't live. No matter if he's on peak stage Tao initiation or illuminating God, he's definitely not Murong He's match. Murong, he had been famous for decades, and his spell cultivation base was already at illuminating God. That's right. That's it. She could not help but reveal a smirk on her face. Yi, I've underestimated you. But so what? You've offended Murong Yang. I like to see how you're going to die. P.S. It's a 3,000-word chapter. I can't write anymore. Rest early, everyone. Chapter 291. In the Ghost Rider Sect's main hall, Yi Chun could not shift his gaze away from the painting on the stone wall. The young lady in red, sitting on the white bone throne, looked too similar to Su Yuhan. Her eyes, her brows, and her slender and exquisite body seemed to be carved from the same mold as Su Yuhan. The only difference was their aura. Su Yuhan was an aloof goddess with the charm of a mature young woman. Meanwhile, the young lady in the painting had a cold and noble aura that seemed to be unintentional. At that moment, the little girl in Yi Wushuang's embrace pointed at the young lady in the painting and said, "Daddy, there's another mommy on the wall." Yi Chen's expression turned grim. He could not help but look at Su Yuhan next to him. He saw her staring blankly at the young lady in the painting on the wall. She seemed to be in a daze while her pretty face looked lost. She seemed to be struggling as if she was recalling something. Sweat was dripping from her forehead. If one were to look closer, one would notice that her body was shaking lightly at the moment. She looked like she was going to fall. Yi Chen stretched his arm out to hold her immediately. He secretly transferred some spiritual energy in her body and said in his deep voice, "Are you all right?" "I am all right." Su Yuhan stood up straight and said after taking a deep breath in, "Yi Chun, I was hallucinating earlier." "What hallucinating?" Yi Chen's expression turned grim. "I think I entered the painting on the stone wall, the barren land, the tower, and even the palace." Su Yuhan held Yi Chen's hand tightly while cold sweat covered the back of her palm. "I saw so many terrifying things. I killed so many people. I didn't want to kill them, but I couldn't control myself. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. I'm here." Yi Chun held her shoulder and comforted. "Forget it. Stop looking. Let's go back." His brows were filled with coldness. Why would an evil sect that existed during the Shang dynasty have such a few strange paintings on the wall? Why did the veiled lady in the painting look so similar to Su Yuhan? The coldness within Yi Chen grew when he connected Su Yuhan's series of unusual actions since she came in. He was sure that it was not a coincidence. The first thought that popped into his head was that someone was plotting against him and Su Yuhan. That was why they set all of this up. But this thought was immediately denied by him. From the moment they entered the door until now, they had not been attacked or harmed at all. Instead, it was as if they were strolling in their own vegetable garden. But the more was like this, the more uneasy he felt. Could it be reincarnation? He believed that he was invincible on Earth, but he couldn't see through reincarnation and trace back history. No, she shook her head and said while looking away, Yi-chun, I feel that there's something very important to me here. After saying these words, before Yi-chun could react, she took a step forward and walked toward the altar slowly. In front of her, Wan Hun silently retreated. Yi-chun was about to follow them when the originally quiet spirits glared at him angrily. They bared their teeth as if they were warning him. Humph, a mere ghost wants to stop me? Yi-chun scoffed and casually pinched a bolt of lightning. The lightning crackled in his hand. Even though these Yin souls showed fear on their faces, they still rushed towards him. Don't move, Su Yuhan suddenly said. The spirit stopped in its tracks. Don't worry about me, Yi-chun. I'm fine. Su Yuhan turned her head and smiled at Yi-chun. Subsequently, she walked to the altar slowly. She stopped to take a look when she was at the altar. Eventually, her eyes were fixed on the white bone throne behind the altar. The white bone throne was approximately 6 meters tall. There was a black crystal ball on the armrest. Su Yuhan paused and walked to the white bone throne. Eventually, she sat on the white bone throne and extended her arm to press on the black crystal ball before her. In the next second, the aura on her body changed. There was an endless coldness and a noble aura. At this moment, she seemed to have transformed into the veiled lady in the painting who looked down on the world. Thud, thud, thud. At this moment, the spirits that were motionless earlier knelt to her at the same time. Their initially ferocious, illusory features became extremely peaceful. Sob, sob, sob. The ghostly wails and howls were heard again. They sounded like they were crying. Why, your majesty? Deep voices came from their mouths. Yuhan, come back now. Yi-chun's expression changed all of a sudden. He moved and dashed toward the white bone throne. Roar. As he moved, the spirits that were kneeling on the ground charged at him. Their features became distorted and ferocious again. Get lost. A dragon roar came out of Yi-chun's mouth as he was enraged. It was the heavenly dragon's 8 music. A few dragon-shaped energy swept everywhere. The spirits that were charging at him were killed instantly. However, more spirits charged at him fearlessly. They seemed to be trying to stop Yi-chun. Stop. At that moment, Su Yuhan, who was sitting on the white bone throne, suddenly spoke. Her voice was crisp, cold, and brooking no rejection. As soon as she was done speaking, all of the spirits stopped moving at the same time. Yi-chun then looked at Su Yuhan. He saw that there was a black vertical eye between her brows that contained endless ghostly energy. Most importantly, the aura on her had changed. It became a little unfamiliar. Yi-chun also sensed an extremely terrifying power from her. The power was no weaker than when he was in the immortal world. Possession? The thought popped into Yi-chun's head immediately. He shouted angrily while looking at Su Yuhan. Where did this monster come from? How dare you touch my woman? Get out of her body right now. Yi Wuxuan's expression changed slightly. He stood next to Yi-chun while carrying Meng Meng. The great thunder, sword in his hand, released bolts of lightning. Su Yuhan lifted her head to look at Yi-chun. There was a hint of complexity in her eyes. She said softly while opening her red lips, Tindi Yi, your woman is fine. There's no need to panic. Who exactly are you? Yi-chun's expression was extremely grim, but a storm was stirring inside of him. Su Yuhan lifted her head to take a good look at the entire Ghost Rider sect's main hall. She spoke slowly. 3,000 years ago, the Ghost Rider sect's founding sect leader, Luo Daoyuan, went to a place in his dream. It was a dark place, and all the men there were ugly while the women there were beautiful. Luo Daoyuan went to this world in his dream and saw a lady playing the guqin in the pavilion by accident. He fell in love with the lady just by looking at her. He wanted to talk to her, but he was woken up by the lady's music. Luo Daoyuan went to his dream many times after that. He wanted to enter this world, but he couldn't find it. He could only build the Ghost Rider sect and carved everything he saw and heard that day in the main hall. Yi-chun took a good look at her. Is the world that Luo Daoyuan is sleepwalking in the Azura realm? He finally understood now. It was no wonder that the murals around looked like that. Only the 6 realms of Azura would look like that. Yes. Su Yuhan nodded lightly while her eyelashes fluttered. It's the Azura realm, and I'm the remnant of the Azura King's soul. Your woman is my reincarnation. Yi Chun was shocked. What did you say? Chapter 292. Azura was also known as the Emperor of the Underworld, the King of the Underworld, and the Lord of the Underworld. He ruled over the 6 realms of the Underworld, and his status was similar to the Lord of the Spirit Realm. His cultivation was close to that of a perfected immortal. Unfortunately, the Lord of Azura led the Azura world to attack the spiritual realm. Just as they were about to conquer the spiritual realm, 3 true immortals descended upon the world. The Azura King fought against the 3 of them alone, causing the world to change color. In the end, his soul was destroyed. Ichun only found out about these secrets when he became the Heavenly Emperor. The master of the Azura realm had existed much longer than him. Su Yuhan was the reincarnation of such a person. Judging from her aura, her cultivation base was higher than Yi Chen's current cultivation base. If they were to fight, Yi Chen would definitely not be her match. She seemed to have sensed his worry. Su Yuhan said bitterly, "Don't worry. My soul has already been destroyed. I'm just a remnant soul now. I won't take over your woman. In reality, I don't have the ability to do that. I'm just an existence that should have dissipated in this world. Perhaps this is fate. 3,000 years ago, Luo Daoyuan founded the Ghost Rider sect because of me. 3,000 years later, my reincarnation has been lured here. If that's the case, you should disappear as soon as possible." Yi Chun smirked coldly. He did not let go of the hostility within him at all. She sighed faintly and said, "Before I disappear, I'd like to make a deal with you." "What deal?" Yi Chun asked. "Your woman has a dark spirit root and a purine body. She was born with a nether body. She can only inherit my legacy, so I plan to pass it on to her." At this point, she paused. "In the future, I hope that she can save my people and become the new Azura King. There's no need for that. My woman doesn't need to inherit someone else's things." Yi Chun sneered. "Fine, I will leave behind the memory inheritance. Whether you choose or not depends on your woman's choice." Su Yuhan sighed softly. After that, the aura on her body began to dissipate, including the vertical eye between her brows. At the same time, the spirits in the surroundings all let out sorrowful cries. She collapsed on the white bone throne as soon as her aura dissipated completely. Yi Chun went forward to hold her immediately. At the same time, he checked her body carefully. He was relieved after confirming that the person had really disappeared and did not do anything to her body. Over half an hour later, Su Yuhan woke up slowly. She looked rather lost. "What happened to me, Yi Chun? You don't remember?" Yi Chun glared at her. Su Yuhan got up and looked around. She rubbed her forehead and said, "I only remember that I lost consciousness after I sat on that seat. I'm fine. You're probably too tired." Yi Chun comforted her while smiling. He chose to hide what happened earlier. However, what she said next shocked him. "Oh yeah, I feel like there's a lot of unfamiliar information in my head. Listen to me. Forget about them. Don't look at them. Don't think about them," Yi Chun said in all seriousness while holding her hand tightly. The reason why he was unwilling to let Su Yuhan inherit the Azura King's inheritance was because he was worried that the Azura King would do something to her. For example, when Su Yuhan became powerful, she would suddenly take over. "All right, I'll listen to you." Su Yuhan nodded obediently. Let's go. Let's go back." Yi Chun led her down from the bone throne. "Wait." Su Yuhan suddenly stopped walking. She looked at the countless spirits next to her. There was pity on her pretty face. "Yi Chun, can you release them? They've been trapped here for 1,000 years. They're so pitiful." "Release them?" Yi Chun frowned. With his cold personality, he actually did not want to care about that. Su Yuhan moved closer and kissed him on the cheek. She said softly, "Help me." "All right." Yi Chun nodded and subsequently walked to the altar. He lifted his head to look at the spirits before him. There were so many spirits before him, and they were filled with resentment. It was impossible for him to release them one by one just by chanting the method. Even if he could do that, he would be exhausted. They seemed to have sensed something and knelt before Yi Chun at the same time. Countless refining materials appeared before Yi Chun as he thought to this point. He spat true essence fire at Su Yuhan and began refining magic tools with a wave of his arm. Not long after, 6 black formation flags appeared in front of him, as well as a magic tool that looked like a paper crane. Yi Chun planted all 6 black formation flags around the altar. He then placed a magic tool that looked like a paper crane in the middle of the altar. He then looked at the spirits kneeling in front of him and said calmly, "You have been dead for 1,000 years, and your resentment is extremely strong. Logically speaking, you should not be able to reincarnate. However, on account of my woman, I will send you to reincarnation today." A flower that was made of spiritual energy appeared in his hand as soon as he was done speaking. Yi Chun rubbed it softly, and the flower shattered instantly. It turned into spiritual energy that drifted toward the spirit before him like scattered dandelions. When the spiritual energy fell on the spirits, the resentment on their bodies quickly dissipated, and the ferocious expressions on their faces gradually became incomparably peaceful. "Rise." Yi Chun lifted his arm and performed a series of hand seals on the altar where the rejuvenation barrier was set up. The entire altar released a white glow. "If you want to reincarnate, enter the formation." He let out a loud shout. As soon as he said that, the spirits that were kneeling on the ground stood up at the same time and walked into the formation in an orderly manner. All of the spirits looked at Su Yuhan at the same time. They then glanced at Yi Chun and Yi Wushuang, who was carrying Meng Meng next to him. They looked grateful. Extremely pure energy exploded from their bodies at the same time. The energy landed on Yi Chun and the rest like a curtain of rain. "This is..." Su Yuhan was stunned. Meng Meng giggled and said, "Daddy, I feel so good. This is the soul power that they have cultivated for 1,000 years. They gave their soul power back to us before they left. That's their way of thanking us." Yi Chun explained while smiling. He also felt that the power of his spiritual consciousness had greatly increased. If it could only cover a radius of 1 kilometer before, it could now cover a radius of 5 kilometers. This could also be considered as a peck in the mouth, a taste of karma. "Thank you for your kindness. Let's go." He lifted his head to look at the spirits in the formation and took a deep breath in. He chanted, "By the Grand Supreme Edict, all spirits are to kneel before my altar and be reborn. Those who have a head will be reborn, and those who have no head will ascend. All spirits will be blessed. Today, I order you to be reborn." As soon as he was done speaking, the altar shook violently. The altar shook violently, and a beam of light shot up into the sky. Then a white crane flew out from the altar. The white crane was carrying many souls on its back. "Daddy, it's a white crane," the little girl exclaimed. The white crane flapped its wings and flew out of the hall directly. It disappeared. Su Yuhan said curiously, "Yi Chun, what's with that white crane?" Chapter 293. "That's right, Daddy. Where did that big white crane bring those aunties and uncles to?" Ming Ming was curious too. Yi Chun chuckled softly when he saw the mother and daughter's expressions. "Haven't you guys heard of flying a crane to the west? That white crane brought them to the 6 realms of reincarnation. Then, they'll be reincarnated according to their fates. In this world, there were 2 types of treatment when a person turned into a ghost after death. Humans were distinguished by their status, while ghosts were distinguished by good and evil. Regular ghosts would be taken away by the messenger of death. The messenger of death would not be so kind to ordinary souls. They would usually be chained up and brought to the netherworld by force. Another type of treatment was for the messenger of death to bring the ghost soldiers to the netherworld. The messenger of death would be the king of hell after his death. In history, Lord Bao would be taken to the netherworld by the guard of honor to be the king of hell after his death. It was just like the saying went, those who were loyal and filial would be the king of the underworld after their death. Apart from those 2 types of treatment, Yi Chun, the heavenly emperor of the generation, could skip the procedure of going to the netherworld and go to the 6 realms of reincarnation directly. To put it simply, the ghosts that the white crane brought away earlier were like backdoor visitors. "You guys rest here. I'll go take a look." Yi Chun began walking around the Ghost Rider sect after saying that. Since he was here, he could not return empty-handed. The next morning, Yichen left the mountain with Su Yuhan and Meng Meng after resting at the Ghost Rider Sect Mountain Gate for a night. He was heading to the Longxi bus station. He planned to take a bus to Guangzhou's provincial capital from there, and then fly to Beijing. Then, he would return to Tiannan. Su Yuhan was not used to flying on her sword. Perhaps it was a modern mindset that was hard to change in a short time. When it was close to noon, Yichen arrived near the bus station with his wife and daughter. To his surprise, he found many policemen gathered at the entrance of the bus station. Why are there so many policemen? Did something happen at the bus station? Su Yuhan asked in confusion. Yichen scanned with his divine consciousness. Just when he was going to speak, he noticed a man in a cap standing at the newsstand less than 500 meters away from him. The other party looked at him with shock and even ecstasy. Then, he ran into an alley without a change in expression. "Wait for me here." Yichen moved and chased after him immediately after saying that. When he arrived at the alley, he saw the man in the cap take out his phone and was about to call someone. The man was shocked when he noticed Yichen. He dropped his phone on the ground and panicked. "Itch, how did you catch up to me? Are you going to call the Morong family?" Yichen said wryly. The peaked cap man took a few steps back and suddenly spread his feet to run, but the next moment, he felt that his body could not move. Seeing that he was unwilling to say anything, Yichen walked over and pressed his hand on his head. He performed the soul-searching tactic forcefully. Later on, he found out that the Murong clan had captured Yushasha because of Murong Yang's death. Murong, he even wanted to challenge him. "Murong he, you're courting death." Yichen chuckled and disappeared from where he was without even looking at the young man in the cap, who had turned into an idiot. She asked as soon as she saw him, "What did you do? Do you still remember Yushasha? She's been captured. I'm going to get her out," Yichen said while smiling. He was not a busybody. The main reason was that Yushasha was dragged into this because of him. Moreover, this girl was not bad. Therefore, he was going to help her. Su Yuhan was shocked. "What? Who captured her?" "Don't worry. I won't let anything happen to her. Let's go. I'll bring you to a place to settle down." Yichen comforted her and brought the mother and daughter to a hotel nearby to stay. After getting Yu Wushuang to protect the mother and daughter, he walked out of the hotel and headed to the Murong residence. At the same time, in the backyard of the Murong family, there were two burly men standing guard at the entrance of a small storeroom. Murong Shui walked over with a lunchbox in her hand, but the two hunks stopped her immediately. "I'm here to give food to my friend." Murong Shui forced a smile on her face. Subsequently, two thick stacks of cash appeared in her hand. She passed the cash to the two hunks intentionally. "Brothers, please let me in." The two hunks revealed a smile on their faces after taking the money. "Go in. I'll only give you 10 minutes. Nobody would say no to money. Even the two of them were no exception. Murong Shui thanked them and pushed the door open with the lunchbox. She saw Yushasha sitting on a stool with her limbs tied up. There was a ball of cloth in her mouth. Yushasha immediately started sobbing when she saw Murong Shui. Her little face was filled with excitement. She said immediately after Murong Shui removed the ball of cloth, "Sister Shui, how was it? Are they willing to let me go?" Murong Shui bit her lip and said rather helplessly, "Shasha, I'm afraid I can't. I try my best." She had asked her father, Murong Chung, to beg Murong he for mercy for Yushasha. However, she was kicked out before she even saw her. She was only from the Murong clan side branch, so she had no right to see Murong he at all. Moreover, it was Murong he's favorite grandson, Murong Yang, who had died. Yushasha's face turned pale upon hearing that. Yushasha's face turned pale. She covered her mouth and cried. Her tears fell like pearls from a broken necklace. She was just a university student who had yet to graduate. However, she was captured by the Murong clan just because she knew Yichen. Her life was even in danger. No one would be able to take that. "Shasha, I brought you your favorite chives. Have some," Murong Shui said while forcing a smile. However, Yushasha could not stop crying. Murong Shui's heart ached, and she was furious to see that. It's all Ye's fault. If not for him, you wouldn't have been dragged into this. Regret filled her face as she spoke to this point. If we had known that, we wouldn't have met him on the bus earlier. "Sister Shui, Did Yichen really kill Morongyang? Yushasha wiped her tears and lifted her head to look at her all of a sudden. Morong Shui was silent for a few seconds, then shook her head. I'm not sure either, but it shouldn't be fake. She was in disbelief when she first heard that Yi Chun had killed Morongyang. After all, to her, Yi Chun was considered a wealthy young master at most. How could he have the ability and guts to kill Morongyang? One must know that not only was Morongyang the Morong clan's eldest young master, but he was also a cultivator. He was a spell master on Mastery Stage Dao entry. But the truth was right in front of them. She had to believe it even if she did not want to. The only thing she felt was that she was shocked by Yi Chen's ability. At that moment, Yushasha bit her lip and said weakly, Sister Shui, do you think Yi Chen will decome to save me? Hee. Morong Shui laughed coldly. What do you think? I'm afraid you don't know how powerful Morong he is. He's an illuminating god spellmaster. He's like a god. Even if the Yi guy has some ability, he's definitely not his match. He knew that it was a trap, and you're not related to him at all. Why would he come? Maybe he's already in hiding. Hearing this, Yushasha's face turned pale as she burst into tears again. Her heart was filled with despair. Chapter 294. Yichen had no idea what Morong Shui was thinking about. Even if he did, he would not care. All Yichen wanted to do in his life was to have a clear conscience. He never cared about what other people thought. Yichen was not fast, but he was not slow either. At his level, even if he did not use his magic power to walk, it was as if there was wind beneath his feet. Over 20 minutes later, Yi Chun arrived less than a kilometer away from the Morong residence. There was a quiet path before him. It was similar to a path in a park with cobblestones. Meanwhile, there were neat maple trees around the path. Yi Chun was shocked to find people in all sorts of strange attire everywhere on the path. Most of them had the cultivation base of an ancient martial artist, and the highest among them was on illuminating pulse. Are these people here to watch the show? Yi Chun secretly speculated. After all, Morong he had issued a challenge to him earlier. It was not surprising that people were here to watch the show. At that moment, an impatient voice came from his side. Dad, how much longer do we have? I'm dying of exhaustion. I'm tired and thirsty. Yi Chun lifted his eyes to look. There was a man and a lady standing under a maple tree 50 steps away from his right. The man was approximately 40 years old. His temples were bulging, and he was breathing heavily. Meanwhile, the pretty lady next to him was approximately 24 or 25 years old. She wore black training attire, and her facial features looked similar to the middle-aged man. However, there was impatience on the lady's face at the moment. She was holding a low-heeled shoe that was a little short in her hand. She was fanning herself with her hand as she spoke. Yi Chun's eyes paused on the middle-aged man a few times because he realized that the man had the cultivation base of illuminating pulse. Moreover, the joints on his fingers were rather thick. Clearly, he was an expert in external martial arts. The pretty lady glared at him ferociously after noticing Yi Chun's gaze. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen it before? Cece, don't be so rude. The middle-aged man scolded her immediately. He then turned his head to look at Yi Chun and smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, little brother. I've spoiled my daughter. That's her temper. Yi Chun shook his head lightly and was about to leave. However, the lady was unhappy. Who's that? Who allowed you to leave? Stop right there. Yi Chun turned his head and glared at her coldly. I see that you're also going to the Morong family to watch the show, so you should have some skills. I'm very unhappy right now. Do you want to fight with me? The woman moved her arms and legs, her eyes filled with arrogance. The middle-aged man said with a sullen face, Cece, if you do this again, don't come out with me next time. As soon as he said that, the woman pouted and said coldly, Dad, I'm just unhappy. I've been in the car for so long, and now I have to walk. My legs are about to break. Who told you to come? The middle-aged man glared at her and turned his head to look at Yi Chun. He smiled lightly. Little brother, don't take it to heart. Oh yeah, are you going to the medicinal pill exchange at the Morong residence too? No, I'm going to kill someone. Yi Chun shook his head lightly. As soon as he said this, the woman burst into laughter. You want to go to the Morong family to kill people? Did I hear wrongly, Or are you boasting? Even the middle-aged man was shocked. Yi Chun frowned. Is there a problem with me killing people? Of course. The woman snickered and looked at him as if she was looking an idiot. Do you know what kind of place the Morong family is? They're the leader of Ganzhou, where there are many experts, especially old Master Morong He, who's the Ganzhou #1. How dare you say that you're going to the Morong family to kill people? She took a good look at Yi Chun from head to toe as she spoke to this point. She was rather disdainful. Moreover, you don't look like an expert at all. You might not even be able to defeat me. So how are you going to kill people? The middle-aged man looked awkward and stopped her immediately. He said to Yi Chun, "Little brother, watch what you say. It's fine if I heard that, but if someone else heard it, you'd be in trouble." The middle-aged man sighed softly and subsequently walked over with the lady. He took the initiative to introduce himself. "I'm Hui Yushan from the Longnan Home Martial Arts Dojo. This is my daughter, Hui Sisi. May I know your name, little brother?" "My surname is Yi," Yi Chun said coldly. Hui Yushan said, while smiling immediately, "Since we're going the same way, let's go together. We could take care of each other." "Dad, you're the successor of the Hua family's tantric fist, after all. Isn't it embarrassing for you to be with this brat?" Hui Sisi scoffed. "That's enough. You can stop talking." Hui Yushan could not do anything to his daughter. She had been spoiled since she was young. Now that she learned some martial arts and was invincible in the dojo, it made her arrogant. Yi Chun smiled in a non-committal manner and walked out. "Dad, look at this brat. He doesn't appreciate your kindness," Hui Sisi said angrily. Hui Yushan could only catch up with Yi Chun quickly with her. He would rather face Yi Chun's coldness than listen to his daughter's complaints like before. Hui Yushan could not help but speak after noticing that Yi Chun was silent along the way. "I wonder which sect you're from, little brother?" People in the martial Tao world paid attention to different circles and sections. To ease the atmosphere, he could only use such a method to find a common topic with Yi Chun. "I'm not from any sect," Yi Chun said coldly. "Not from any sect?" Hui Yushan smiled upon hearing that and stopped asking. He thought that Yi Chun was unwilling to reveal anything. Hui Sisi, on the other hand, scoffed. "I thought you were from a prestigious family since you have such a bad temper. Turns out you're not from any sect." Yi Chun ignored her and continued walking. His neglect made Hui Sisi feel like she was punching cotton. She could only clench her teeth angrily behind him. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of the Morong residence. The group of people rushed to the entrance of the Morong family's old house. The guards here had been changed. They were now 2 ancient martial arts practitioners of the internal energy stage. Hui Yushan walked up and handed them a gilded name card. He said while smiling, "I'm Hui Yushan from the Hua family dojo in Longnan. This is my daughter. We're here for the medicinal pill exchange." The 2 hunks nodded expressionlessly. "Oh, it's Master Hua from Longnan. Do you know the rules of the medicinal pill exchange? You're not allowed to pick a fight or cause trouble." "Yes." Hui Yushan nodded immediately. The 2 hunks only looked at Yi Chun then. "Brother Yi, take out your name card. Otherwise, you won't be able to enter," Hui Yushan kindly reminded him. However, Yi Chun shook his head. "I don't have a name card, and I don't need one." His voice fell. Hui Yushan and his daughter were stunned. "Since you don't have a name card, then why did you come to participate in the pill exchange conference?" A big man sneered. It was their first time guarding the door. Although they heard that Yi Chun had killed Murong Yang, they had never seen him before. Therefore, they had no idea what he looked like. You can't get in without a name card." Hui Sisi shook her head and smiled. The next moment, Yi Chun took a step forward and shouted, "Murong He, I, Yi Chun, am here today. Come out and accept your death." His voice was like a great bell, yet it was also like rolling thunder. It was deafening and directly spread out in all directions. Hui Yushan and his daughter were dumbfounded. Chapter 295. In the guest hall of the Murong residence, many martial artists were sitting there. Most of them had a powerful aura, especially the 4 people sitting on the 4 armchairs in the front. Each of them had a shocking aura with a golden gleam in their eyes. The guest hall was noisy at the moment. It was filled with people talking and discussing. 3 silhouettes sat far away. They were Zhang Mengqi, Zhang Haoshuan, and Zhang Zijian. At that moment, Zhang Mengqi lifted her head to look at the four people sitting on the armchairs. Shock and seriousness filled her pretty face. I can't believe that the King Kong sect leader, Wu Di, the Iron Fist sect leader, Niet Wenyuan, the Flying Dagger sect leader, Lu Feng, and the Little Overlord, Fei Santong are here. It's them, Zhang Haoshuan exclaimed softly from the side. Not only were the four of them famous in Gan province, but they were also well known throughout the entire northwestern region. This was because they were all experts at the peak of the illuminating pulse stage, only half a step away from becoming a martial Dao Grandmaster. For example, Wu Di from the King Kong sect was invulnerable to weapons and bullets. Niet Wenyuan from the Iron Fist sect could punch through a steel plate with a single punch. Meanwhile, Lu Feng from the Flying Dagger sect had 7 flying daggers. He had 100% accuracy and could break anything, especially the Little Overlord, Fei Santong. He was extremely talented and was 3 meters tall. Coupled with his huge build, he looked like a giant. Zhang Mengqi inhaled. Just when she was going to speak, she heard a clap. The guest hall fell into silence at that moment. Subsequently, Wu Di from the King Kong sect got up and cleared his throat. He looked around and said, "Guys, I've discussed with sect leader Nye from the Iron Fist sect and the rest. In reality, there's no need for old Master Morong he to kill Yi Chun. The 4 of us can kill him." The people were shocked. An old man clasped his fists and could not help but ask, "Sect leader Wu, are you serious?" Of course. It's been a day since old Master Morong he sent the challenge letter. However, he hasn't done anything yet. I'm guessing he doesn't dare to accept the challenge. Wu Di nodded lightly and smiled proudly with his arms behind his back. Therefore, I suggest that the Morong clan take back the challenge letter. At the same time, pretend to keep the peace so that Yi Chun will let his guard down. Then, we'll continue looking for his whereabouts secretly. As soon as we find him, the 4 of us will kill him. Not bad, Nye Wenyuan from the Iron Fist sect said, while smiling. Since he is afraid of old Master Morong his cultivation base is definitely not on Illuminating God. He's on peak stage Dao Entry at most. The 4 of us are on peak stage Illuminating Pulse. We can kill him if we work together. I wonder what price our Morong family will have to pay. A member of the Morong family asked subconsciously. Lu Feng from the Flying Dagger School stroked his beard and smiled. We heard that the Morong family has a good relationship with the Spiritual Medicine Mountain, so we'd like to ask the Morong family to ask the Spiritual Medicine Mountain to refine some pills that can help us improve our cultivation. The 4 of them have been stuck at the peak of the Meridian Opening Realm for many years. The 4 of them had discussed it, and they had found that only by relying on medicinal pills would they have the slightest hope of breaking through to the Xiantian realm. The Morong family can consider this, but we have to report it to the old master first, the person from the Morong family said. Ha ha ha. Someone laughed and said, "If the 4 powerhouses join forces, ye will definitely be killed." Everyone nodded immediately. "I'm just afraid that you will hide forever," someone said worriedly. "If I were Yi Chun, I'd come to him to ask for forgiveness. Perhaps he'll die in one piece that way." Wu Di scoffed. Just when he was going to say something, a deafening voice came from outside all of a sudden. "Morong I, Yi Chun, am here today. Come out now and accept your death." Bang! The people in the lounge froze instantly. They thought they had heard it wrong, so they could not react at the moment. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the Morong residence, as Yi Chun's majestic voice was heard, the ones who were the most shocked were Hua Yushan and his daughter, as well as the 2 hunks guarding the door. "Why you?" Hua Sisi was the first to react. She looked at Yi Chun in disbelief and said while stammering, "You're the Yi Chun who killed Morong Yang?" She could not get over the shock. Initially, she thought that Yi Chun was just a passerby that she had bumped into. Never had she thought that it was Yi Chun who had been in the limelight recently. That was the kind of person he was. How could she provoke him earlier? Hua Yushan was stunned for a moment. Subsequently, he clasped his fists at Yi Chun in all seriousness and forced a smile. "It's my fault. Quick, report it now." After the 2 big men reacted, they rushed into the villa together. Not long after, there was a burst of rapid footsteps coming from inside. Subsequently, a slightly plump middle-aged man led the people out. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Chun and shouted in rage, "Yi, you've finally shown yourself? Where's Morong He? Ask him to come out and accept his death." Yi Chun said calmly, "How dare you?" A scoff came. An old man in the spiritual medicine mountain's uniform looked at Yi Chun with a grim expression. "Yi Chun, you killed old Fu of my spiritual medicine mountain. You must give my spiritual medicine mountain an explanation." The man was a beginner-stage, illuminating pulse martial artist. He did not take Yi Chun seriously because he had the advantage of numbers. "Sure, I'll give you an explanation now." Instead of being angry, Yi Chun smiled. He stretched his arm out and grabbed him. The man was instantly grabbed by him. Just when he was about to speak, a palm came, and the man's head was crushed. Dead silence filled the place at the moment. Huasisi's eyes were wide open in shock. Zhang Mingqi and the other two had a change of expression. Clearly, they did not expect a beginner-stage, illuminating pulse ancient martial artist to die just like that. One must know that such an expert would be a revered one in the Zhang family of Wannan. "Yi Chun, how dare you kill someone before us? You're insane." The King Kong sect leader, Wu Di, was enraged. He curled his palm into a fist and threw a punch at Yi Chun. That punch was like a ferocious tiger roaring in the forest. It was extremely ferocious. Yi Chun smirked in disdain. He threw a punch too, without dodging. Bang! Wu Di was immediately blown up by his punch, turning into a rain of blood that filled the sky. The people were dumbstruck at that moment. He had killed an illuminating pulse expert with a single punch? Did he have to be so terrifying? Yi Chun moved again. He charged directly at the Iron Fist sect leader, Nie Wenyuan, and the other two. Nie Wenyuan's expression changed. Before he could react, he felt a heavy blow on his chest. Bang! His body exploded instantly. Another one was killed. He did not even pant. Lu Feng from the Flying Dagger sect and the Little Overlord, Fei Santong, had a drastic change of expression. They wanted to run, but Yi Chun caught up to them. Their bodies were torn into pieces directly. The four experts who were so confident earlier were killed just like that. They did not even have the chance to fight back. At that moment, the entire lounge was dead silent. At that moment, Yi Chun was like a thunderbolt. He crushed everything as if he was crushing dead leaves and chopping vegetables. How could he be so powerful? Zhang Haoshuan and the other two, as well as Huasusu, were completely dumbstruck. Bang! A black dragon formed by black energy leaped out of the staircase on the 4th floor and charged at Yi Chun directly. "Yi Chun, it's not even 3 days yet. Are you in such a rush to die?" Morong Hitsong appeared at the staircase. He looked at Yi Chun with an extremely grim expression. Yi Chun said coldly, "Old man, there's no need for 3 days. I can kill you now." Chapter 296. Old Master Morong is here. As soon as Morong He appeared, everyone in the Morong residence's guest hall had their eyes focused. Their eyes were burning with passion. Many of them smirked and looked at Yi Chun gloatingly. "You're dead now. Old Master Morong is Ganzhou's #1. His spells are amazing. So what if you killed 4 peak stage illuminating pulse experts?" Morong He's expression was grim. He wore a gray robe and walked slowly with a dragon-headed walking stick. Although he was walking slowly, it felt like he was walking on the surface of a lake, causing ripples to form. Although he was very close, he gave off a feeling that he could only be seen but not reached. "He's too powerful." Zhang Mingqi, who was among the crowd, secretly inhaled sharply. Old Master Murong must have reached the stage of nature that Grandpa mentioned. Even Hui Yushan and his daughter could not help but immerse themselves in the rhythm of his footsteps. A moment later, Murong He stopped less than 2 meters away from Yi Chun. He ignored the crowd and glared at Yi Chun coldly. "You arrogant brat, do you know that Yang, is the most outstanding descendant of my clan? I place too much hope and effort on him. How dare you kill him? So what if I kill him? What do you do to me? You're just an ant. You deserve to die." Yi Chun smiled calmly. "Moreover, he offended me many times for a so-called pill. He deserves to die." If I'm not mistaken, you must have instructed him to do that. Am I right? I have no idea what you're talking about. Murong, he smirked. Although the Murong clan was a tyrant in Ganzhou, and he was the #1 expert in Ganzhou, there were some dark things that he could not talk about openly. Old thing, you're shameless. You're exactly the same as that useless grandson of yours who died. Yichen shook his head lightly with slight disdain on his face. It's no wonder that you would threaten me with an innocent girl. Now, come and accept your death. At the end of his speech, his voice turned cold. He took a step forward and leaped onto a tall maple tree around the Murong family's villa. Great. Murong, he looked ferocious. Since you're asking for a quick death, I'll send you on your way. As soon as he finished speaking, a gust of wind suddenly blew under his feet, and he floated to another maple tree as if he was carried by the wind. The distance between them was less than 10 meters. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the two of them. Their hearts were thumping nonstop. Now, they were certain that Yi Chen's cultivation base was on illuminating God, and so was Murong He. The battle between two spirit realm warriors was hard to come by in 20 years. Zhang Zijian, who was in the crowd, looked at the figures standing at the top of the maple tree with a complicated gaze. He said by instinct, Misty, you must win. Although he didn't think it was possible. After all, they knew how powerful Murong He was. He wants to win? Aren't you thinking too much? Zhang Haoshuan, who was standing aside, could not help but smirk. Although this fella is quite capable, it's impossible for him to be Murong He's match. Otherwise, why do you think the name Murong He has been shining in Gan province for decades? Not bad. Zhang Mengqi nodded and said, it's very likely that Murong He has already comprehended nature Tao. His ability is even more powerful than ordinary illuminating God powerhouses. You will definitely die today. Speaking of this, her eyes were filled with joy. Yi, I asked you to give the heart-repairing pill to the Zhang family, but you didn't believe me. Now, you can only die. Dad, this is a spell master? Hua Sisi asked with her eyes wide open. Hua Yushan took a deep breath and said, yes, and he's a powerful spell master. Yi is in trouble this time, Hua Sisi mumbled. Even she did not have high hopes for Yi Chun. Meanwhile, Murong He, who was standing on top of the maple tree, glared at Yi Chun coldly. Yi Chun, you've broken through to illuminating God at such a young age. You're considered a genius, even in China. If we let you grow, you'll definitely be famous in the spell world in less than 10 years. It's unfortunate that you shouldn't have killed Yang, and offended my Murong family. Today, I'll let you witness my power. At the end of his sentence, the aura on his body surged. Subsequently, he performed a hand seal with both hands. Immediately, a crimson flame shot out of his hand and smashed at Yi Chun like a gigantic fireball, creating fire out of thin air. Countless people had a change of expression when they saw that. All of them were shocked by Murong He's technique. Indeed, the technique of an illuminating God was beyond their imagination. That's just a child's play. Break it. Yi Chun scoffed. Without even lifting his eyelids, he stretched his arm out and grabbed the gigantic fireball that was coming at him. Bang! The fireball shattered as a result. It turned into sparks that flew everywhere, scaring many people who were standing nearby to dodge. Someone exclaimed, breaking all spells with brute force? One must know that Murong, he was an illuminating God expert. The fire condensation spell that he performed casually could blow up a tree. However, Yi Chun had broken it so easily. Even Murong, he was slightly shocked. He subsequently scoffed and said, you're quite capable. No wonder you dare to come here and seek death. Win, rise. He performed a hand seal quickly with both hands as soon as he spoke. A black glow exploded from his hands. The glow was getting bigger and bigger like a black sun. At the same time, he shouted, falling leaves. Within 1,000 meters with him, as the center, a strange wind appeared out of nowhere. The strange wind was getting stronger, causing countless maple trees to shake. They seemed to be collapsing. The maple leaves that filled the sky seemed like it was raining as they landed on his hands. Eventually, they consolidated into a gigantic black ball. The black ball spun rapidly like a black hole with a terrifying suction force. At this moment, everyone on the ground staggered and almost lost their balance. Countless people's expressions changed as they watched this scene in shock. Is that an illuminating God's technique? Huasisi held on to Hui Yushan tightly as her face turned pale. Zhang Mengqi mumbled, "No wonder Grandpa warned us not to offend the Murong clan no matter what before we left. They're just too terrifying." Murong, he stood in the air as the gray robe on him fluttered in the wind. "Ha ha! Yichun, I'd like to see how you're going to handle this." As soon as he was done speaking, the black ball that was condensed from countless maple leaves in his hand charged at Yichun like a dark tornado with a strong gust of wind. Dust flew everywhere the black ball passed, and the ground was directly plowed into a long gully, as if a cow had plowed back and forth dozens of times. The scene was spectacular. In the blink of an eye, Yichun was completely covered by the black ball that looked like a small hill. The maple tree under his feet was crushed into pieces. "That kid is dead for sure." Zhang Haoshuan couldn't help but shout when he saw this scene. Everyone shook their heads. Under that black ball, even a small hill would be trampled to the ground, let alone a person. "Ha ha, I was wondering how capable you were. It turns out that you're just trying to look impressive." A loud laughter could be heard. Murong, he smirked. "This is the price you have to pay for killing my Yang, and going against the Murong clan. Unfortunately, the pill formulas that you have are—" He didn't finish his sentence. As a loud thud came, the gigantic black ball exploded downstairs. A skinny silhouette shot up like a dragon, soaring into the sky. "Old man Murong, it's too early for you to celebrate." In the next second, a golden fish shadow smashed at Murong he hard. P.S. Chapter 4. There's one more chapter. Chapter 297. What? He's fine. They looked at the golden silhouette that was like a rainbow. Shock appeared on their faces. They were so shocked that their eyeballs were going to fall out of their sockets. How was that possible? The smile on Murong, his face froze. He realized that something was wrong when he sensed the golden fish shadow coming at him. He performed the wind manipulation method immediately in an attempt to dodge it. Bang! The golden fish shadow landed on his back. Murong, he spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying to the ground. At that moment, there was dead silence at the scene. Zhang Mengqi and the rest looked rather pale and shocked as they watched the blood that filled the air. Initially, they thought that Yichun would definitely die from Murong, his spell earlier. Never had they thought that not only was he fine, but he even broke the big black ball and threw Murong he out with a single punch. That brat is so powerful. Huasisi looked dumbstruck. Hui Yushan covered her mouth immediately when he heard that. He could not get rid of the shock inside of him. Tui, Murong he, who was thrown onto the ground, spat another mouthful of blood out. He subsequently stood up from the ground and looked at Yichun with disbelief in his eyes. "Aren't you a spellmaster? How can you have such powerful strength?" If he had not dodged in time earlier, it would have been difficult for him to survive after taking 20% of Yichun's punch's force. "Who told you that I'm a spellmaster?" Yichun stood with his arms behind his back and looked down at him in a condescending manner. Murong, he was stunned at first. Subsequently, he recalled something and shock filled his face. "Why, you're a dual cultivator of spells and martial arts? Why, you're a martial Dao master too." Everyone's expression changed as soon as he was done speaking. The people's expressions changed at the same time. Dual cultivators of spells and martial arts refer to a person cultivating martial Dao and spells at the same time. They would have double combat strength, allowing them to attack from a distance and fight in close combat. However, that was just a legend. One should not bite off more than one could chew. After all, a person's energy was limited. One would have to spend their entire life cultivating martial Dao or spells. Why would one choose such a path? Martial Dao master? Illuminating God? Zhang Mengqi almost fainted. She could not accept the waves of shock that Yichun brought to her at the moment. Before this, he thought that Yichun was merely a spell master who was on peak stage Dao entry. Never had he thought that Yichun would break his fire consolidation method after fighting Murong. He and send him flying with a punch. How is this possible? Zhang Haoshuan, who had mocked Yi Chun repeatedly earlier, turned pale at that moment. He was in disbelief. No one was more shocked than Hua Sisi. Dad, that kid. Oh no, is he really a martial Dao master? A martial Dao grandmaster was a legendary existence. She had never seen one in her life. I'm afraid so. Hui Yushan closed his eyes as his emotions surged. The existence that he had spent his entire life pursuing was now right in front of him, and it was a young man who was not even 30 years old. Murong's expression changed a few times. He chuckled all of a sudden. Yi Chun, so what if you're really a dual cultivator of spells and martial arts? I haven't even used my full strength yet. What other techniques do you have? Use them all. Yi Chun gave a short response. His expression was extremely cold, and no one could tell what he was feeling at all. Toxic dragon miasma. Open up. Murong, he took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it. Subsequently, he slapped the green dragon-headed walking stick that he always carried with him. As a crack was heard, the handle broke. A rainbow-colored mist quickly floated out from the crutch, like a rainbow. The rainbow-colored mist gathered more and more, and finally, it soared into the sky like a rainbow-colored dragon. In the end, it covered the sky and the earth like a rainbow-colored cloud enveloping the earth. It's the toxic dragon miasma. Zhang Mingqi, who was in the crowd, had a change of expression. The little girl from the Zhang family is quite knowledgeable. Murong, he smiled proudly upon realizing that someone recognized the seven-colored mist. That's right. It's the toxic dragon miasma. Sister, what's the toxic dragon miasma? Zhang Haoshuan asked. Zhang Mingqi took a deep breath in and said, Legend has it that there's a toxic dragon stream deep in the old Lingnan forest. There's seven-colored miasma lingering there all year round. It's said that a toxic dragon cultivates there, and a miasma is released by it. Ordinary people would die from just one whiff of it. Their bodies would even turn into thick water. It's appalling. She was from a Zhang family of Huanan. She had been exposed to all sorts of medical knowledge since she was young. She could identify tens of thousands of herbs, as well as all sorts of miasma, poisonous gas, and mirage. The most famous one was the toxic dragon miasma. The people's expressions changed one after another. They retreated a few steps back at the same time. However, the miasma above their heads was just too huge. They could not avoid it. Someone could not help but say, feeling like crying, Old Master Murong, please don't drag us into the grudge between you and Yi Chun. Don't be afraid, everyone, Zhang Mingqi said, while smiling at the critical moment. My family of Huanan has an antidote. You won't be poisoned as long as you consume it. She took out a purple gourd as she spoke. She poured out blue medicinal pills one after another and gave them to the people. They were only relieved after everyone consumed it. They said in gratitude, Ms. Zhang, you're really kind. Now, we can watch Old Master Murong and the rest fight from a close distance. Zhang Mingqi secretly scoffed. Among everyone present, Yi Chun was the only one who had not consumed the antidote. The reason why she did that was that she wanted everyone to witness what would happen to him. Haha, Yi, I'd like to see how you're going to deal with the toxic dragon miasma. Yi Chun, you've seen what I'm capable of. I'll give you a chance now. Hand over the pill formula and destroy your cultivation base. I'll consider leaving your body in one piece. Murong, he laughed out loud, feeling proud of himself. Yi Chun shook his head lightly. Do you really think that you can hurt me with this mere miasma? You're so stubborn. Murong, he smile, turned cold. Subsequently, he performed a hand seal and lifted his arm to attack Yi Chun. Die. As his voice fell, the seven-colored poisonous cloud above his head turned into a hurricane and pressed down on Yi Chun, who was fast. You're still not dead? Zhang Mingqi could not help but scoff upon seeing that. She seemed to have envisioned Yi Chun turning into a pool of blood after being surrounded by the miasma. What a pity. Many people shook their heads. When the hurricane that was formed by the poisonous cloud was about to approach Yi Chun, he suddenly opened his mouth and sucked hard. A tremendous suction force came from his mouth. The next moment, the hurricane became much thinner. It turned into a seven-colored airflow and was sucked into Yi Chen's mouth. Meanwhile, Yi Chen was completely fine. What? Everyone rubbed their eyes as if they had seen a ghost. How is this possible? Mu Ronghe and Zhang Mengqi exclaimed at the same time. Their faces were filled with deep shock. He actually inhaled the toxic dragon miasma in one breath? Is he still human? Hui Yushan and his daughter were terrified. Yi Chen looked at Mu Ronghe wryly. Your technique is much more powerful than Mu Rongyang's. Unfortunately, it's useless on me. Why you? Mu Ronghe was shocked and enraged. Now it's my turn. Yi Chen chuckled and opened his mouth again. A seven-colored mist was spat out of his mouth. I'll let you guys have a taste of the so-called toxic dragon miasma. Haha, have you forgotten that I've taken the antidote pill? Mu Ronghe scoffed by instinct and allowed the seven-colored airflow to attack him. Zhang Mingqi stood where she was and shook her head. She thought that Yi Chen was a fool. However, in the next second, she suddenly felt an itch on her face. She stretched her arm and scratched it immediately. A piece of flesh with skin on it was scratched off. She was stunned. Subsequently, she let out an extremely terrifying and devastating shriek. Ah! Chapter 298. Genius Nanny in the City. Chapter 298. How Dare You Kill Me? City Romance. G-Kickums. At a bookmark. Chapter 298. How Dare You Kill Me? Part 1. I've even poisoned. Zhang Mingqi shrieked in an extremely high-pitched voice as she looked at the bloody mess in her hand. Didn't I take the antidote earlier? How did I get poisoned? Impossible. Her face was filled with disbelief. Zhang Haoshuan's fate wasn't much better than hers. His face was full of bumps and hollows like bloody holes. The rest retreated aside by instinct when they saw the seven-colored poisonous smoke coming, so they were not poisoned. However, everyone looked at the duo in fear. Why your faces? Zhang Zijin looked at them as if he was looking at a ghost. Ghost! Ghost! Huasisi was so scared that she handed it over. Zhang Mengqi and Zhang Haoshuan were just too terrifying at the moment. Aside from the thick water that was flowing out of their faces, their flesh was peeling off as they scratched. At the same time, Mu Ronghe, who was in the air, saw that too. He had a blank expression on his face. Subsequently, he felt his body beginning to itch. The itch was unbearable, as if 10,000 ants were crawling on his body. His hair began to fall off, followed by his scalp. Impossible, this is impossible. Mu Ronghe shrieked in devastation as fear filled his face. I've clearly taken the antidote. How did this happen? Everyone stared blankly at this scene. They could not help but rejoice in their hearts. Haha, Yi Chen smiled calmly. That's because I changed the toxicity of your so-called toxic dragon miasma a little when I swallowed it. You know how to use poison too. Mu Ronghe snapped back to his senses. He looked extremely shocked. That's right. This brat must know how to use poison. Otherwise, why would he be fine after swallowing the toxic dragon miasma? Instead, he changed the toxicity of the toxic dragon miasma. It was useless even though they had taken the toxic dragon pill. Everyone looked at Yi Chen with fear in their eyes. It was one thing for him to defeat Mu Ronghe with both magic and martial arts, but even the toxic dragon miasma could not do anything to him. Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. / Did it have to be so terrifying? Plop. At that moment, Zhang Haoshuan knelt hard onto the ground. He scratched his body while kowtowing to Yi Chen like he was pounding garlic. Yi Chen, Mr. Yi, I was a snob. I failed to recognize you. Please, save me. I don't want to die, he cried as he cowed out. Like a dead dog. Zhang Mengqi knelt on the ground and said in a trembling voice, Mr. Yi, I was wrong. I shouldn't have targeted you again and again. I hope you can save me for the sake of the Zhang family in Wannan. No one was not afraid of death. Even she was no exception. Her heart was filled with deep regret. If he had known that this would happen, he would not have looked at Yi Chen with such arrogance. He would not have wanted to watch him die coldly. The people at the scene were completely dumbfounded to see the duo kneeling on the ground just like that. One must know that the Zhang family in Wannan was known as the national medical family. They had been passed down for up to 100 years and were proficient in medical skills. However, they were bowing before Yi Chen at that moment. Yichun stood with his arms behind his back, facing the duo's apology. His expression was extremely cold. Zhang family in Wannan? What's that? Why you? Zhang Haoshuan shrieked in rage. He wanted to stand up by instinct, but in the next second his body fell hard onto the ground and turned into a pool of blood. No, I don't want to die. Zhang Mengqi shrieked in fear and, subsequently, turned into a pool of blood. The entire place was deathly silent. Everyone held their breaths as they blankly stared at the scene before them. It was such a tragic death. Murong, he was the only one left who was poisoned. At that moment, he was suppressing the poison with his profound cultivation base. He said while stammering, "Yichun, I won't fight you anymore. As long as you give me the antidote, I won't hold you accountable for killing my young." He panicked now. There was no trace of the imposing manner from before. However, an extremely vicious gleam flashed through the depths of his eyes. The hatred he had for Yichun was growing. As long as I escape this calamity, I'll use all my strength to tear you into 1,000 pieces to vent the hatred in my heart. He had made up his mind to bow down to Yichun first. He would think of a way after he had saved his life. With his connections, he could call a few powerhouses of the same level to attack Yichun. Yichun would definitely die. As his voice fell, everyone was in an uproar. Did Murong He, who was on illuminating God, abandon his dignity and beg Yichun to spare his life? The members of the Murong family were in despair. The most powerful person in the Murong family was now like a dog. To Murong He, Yichun was looking at him with a mysterious smile on his face. Yichun, oh no, Seiji, as long as you give me the antidote, I'm willing to give you all of the Murong family's assets. I've cultivated quite a lot over the years. I'm even willing to be your dog. Murong He's heart sank. He raised the price again. You talk too much nonsense. Yichun chuckled softly and took a step out. He charged directly at Murong He. What I hate the most in my life is people threatening me. Murong He wanted to run by instinct. However, he realized that the poison would spread as soon as he activated his cultivation method. He could not help but be enraged. How dare you kill me? Bang! Yichun said nothing. Reminder, please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Instead, he punched Murong He's chest. In the chest. As a loud thud was heard, Murong He was punched into the ground, creating a huge crater. His eyes were wide open, and there was still resentment lingering on his face. In the next second, his body turned into a pool of blood. Uncle, old master, some of the members of the Murong family were devastated. They could hardly believe it. The pillar of the Murong family had died, just like that. The place fell into dead silence. The people who were watching were as quiet as cicadas in winter. They dared not make a sound at all, but the shock in their eyes lingered. They thought Murong He would definitely win the battle, and there would be no suspense at all. Never had they thought that Murong He would die in the end. Moreover, he had died from his own toxic dragon miasma. He killed Uncle. Let's fight him. A member of the Murong family shouted and glared at Yichun in resentment. However, nobody responded to him. Die. Yichun pointed his finger at him. His body exploded into a bloody mist. The people were shocked again. They could not help but secretly curse that person earlier for being an idiot. Can't you see that Murong He is dead? How dare you overestimate yourself and try to fight him? Yichun lifted his eyes to look at all the members of the Murong family. Who else wants to die? Stand out. As soon as he said that, everyone from the Murong family held their heads down, not daring to look at him. An old man from the Murong family stood out and said while shaking, Seiji, Murong He was the one who caused this. It has nothing to do with most of the people in the Murong family. Now that the culprit is dead, please don't start a massacre. Yichun said nothing. His expression was cold. The old man clenched his teeth and knelt before Yichun. As long as you don't destroy my family is willing to acknowledge you as our master. We'll respect you as the master of Ganzhou. As soon as he was done speaking, everyone from the Murong family knelt onto the ground. All the members of the Murong family knelt on the ground in unison. We're willing to acknowledge spiritual master Yi as our master. Thud, thud, thud. In the next second, The people who were watching also knelt on one knee and said in unison, "We're willing to respect you as the master Ganjo. P.S. Also be patient." Chapter 299. We're willing to respect spiritual master Yi as the ruler of Gan province. The hundreds of people present shouted these words in unison. Their voices were like rolling thunder, vast and mighty. Under such a voice, Huasisi's expression was very complicated. She couldn't help but look at the voice that stood proudly in the sky. She only felt that the other party was like an emperor who accepted the worship of everyone. Was this the existence that he had looked down on the way here? Little did they know, he was nothing in the other party's eyes. Thinking of this, her face turned pale. Suddenly, she did not dare to look directly at Yi Chen's radiance. Hui Yushan, who practiced the Hua clan's tantric fist, was shaken to the core. He exhaled a mouthful of murky air. From now on, Gan province will no longer belong to the Murong clan, but to the Yi clan. In one battle, the Murong family had to bow their heads. In just one battle, all the big shots in Gan province had submitted to him. There was nothing more shocking than this. Yichen had no expression on his face facing the people's cheers. Instead, he landed on the ground and looked at the old man from the Murong clan who spoke earlier. "Where's Yushasha?" "It's in the backyard. I'll take you there." The old man jolted and led Yi Chun into the Murong residence immediately. He was secretly glad that Yi Chun was here. Fortunately, they did not do anything extreme to Sha. Otherwise, they would have died. Including the garden and other facilities, the entire Murong family's house was about 1,000 square meters, which was equivalent to the size of an ordinary high school. The distance between the Murong family's backyard and the Murong family's front door was 10 minutes on foot, and they also had to pass through a lot of greenery. In the backyard of the Murong family, Murong Shui hadn't left since she'd entered. "She'd been talking to you, Sha, the entire time." Sha subconsciously asked, "Sister Shui, what's that sound?" "I don't know." Murong Shui glanced outside. She wanted to leave, but she was worried that the two big men guarding the door wouldn't let her in. "Could it be Yi Chen who's here?" Yushasha said weakly while biting her lip. She had a faint hope in her heart. "He? Do you think that's possible?" Murong Shui chuckled and said angrily, "I've already said that he's no match for Murong He. There's no way he would have the guts to come. Furthermore, their battle is the day after tomorrow." Hearing this, Yushasha's face paled. Murong Shui couldn't bear to see her like this. She comforted her, "Don't panic. I'll think of a way to get you out of here." Although she said that, she didn't have much hope in her heart. After all, she was only a branch of the Murong family. "Sister Shui," Yushasha suddenly looked at her. If I die, can you not tell my family? My parents will. If they ask, just tell them that I went abroad to study. Don't worry, you'll be fine." Murong Shui had completely lost control of her emotions. She hugged her and began to sob. Wiping her tears, Yushasha forced a smile. "I'm afraid that my parents won't be able to take it if they know that I'm dead. It's all Ye's fault. If not for him, you wouldn't have been dragged into this." Murong Shui cursed while crying. She hated Yi Chun to death. At this moment, a faint voice came from outside. "That's right, it's indeed my fault." Hearing this, the two girls were stunned. Then the door opened and a skinny figure walked in with his hands behind his back, looking at the two of them with a smile. Murong Shui and Yushasha's eyes widened. "Yi Chun." Yushasha rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Yi Chun chuckled softly. "That's me. I'm sorry to have startled you." However, Murong Shui did not think too much about it. Her expression changed as she said immediately, "Yi Chun, quick, take Shasha away." As she spoke, she stretched out her hand to untie the rope on Yushasha's body. Her actions were very hurried, for fear of wasting even a second. Yi Chun did not move at all. She couldn't help but say angrily, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and help me untie Shasha's rope. Take her away and run. If someone finds out, none of you will be able to escape." She thought Yi Chun had secretly killed the people guarding the door to save Yushasha, while the Murong clan was not paying attention. "Why are you running? She's safe now." Yi Chun smiled lightly and waved his arm. The rope on Yushasha was untied automatically. Just as Murong Shui was about to say something, she suddenly saw an old man in a traditional Chinese robe walk in. Swoosh! Her face instantly turned pale. This was because she recognized the old man as Murong Yen. In the entire Murong clan, his status was second only to Murong He. She fell to the ground with a thud. It's over. This time, no one could escape. Beside her, Yushasha also had a look of despair. However, the next moment, the old man bowed and clasped his fists at Yichun. He said, "Master, although we captured Ms. Yushasha, we didn't torture her." Seeing this scene, the two women were instantly dumbfounded. He was the number 2 person in the Murong clan, yet he was so respectful to Yichun. Weren't they mortal enemies? Murong Shue stammered, "Master, not bad." Murong Yin nodded and said in all seriousness, "The Murong clan has acknowledged Sage Yi as our master." He then added, "By the way, Murong He has committed many evil deeds and almost brought disaster to the Murong clan. Master has already killed him." As soon as he said that, Murong Shue and Yushasha were dumbfounded. "I'm really sorry that you've been locked up for so long because of me. Let's go and have dinner." Yichun smiled at Yushasha. At the dining table, Yichun sat in the main seat while Su Yuhan sat next to him. She was carrying Meng Meng in her arms. He had seized the opportunity to pick up the mother and daughter earlier. All of the Murong clan's upper echelons were there, with careful expressions on their faces. Murong Shue and Yu Shasha were dumbstruck the entire time, facing the scrumptious dishes on the table. Until now, they still could not believe what had happened. Murong Shue, in particular, felt her heart pounding. Yichun had killed Murong He. He had even made the Murong clan yield, and all the bosses in Ganzhou submit to him. Everything that had happened had crushed her psychological defense completely. Murong Yin handed over a document and said with a smile, "Master, this document is the property transfer legal document that my Murong family has entrusted the Shimming law firm to set up. It contains all of my Murong family's property. All you need to do is sign it, and all of my Murong family's property and income will belong to you." As soon as he was done speaking, countless people from the Murong clan were devastated. Murong Yin was heartbroken too. One must know that the Murong clan had hundreds of companies under them. They had been in business for so many years. They had become a financial group with hundreds of billions of assets. Now, all of that had gone to someone else. Clatter. Murong Shue was so shocked that her chopsticks fell onto the ground. Her beautiful eyes were wide open. Yichun glanced at it and subsequently nodded. He said to Meng Meng, who was in his embrace, while smiling, "My dear daughter, Daddy will give you 100 billion, okay? Daddy, how much is 100 billion? Meng Meng's mouth was covered in oil from eating. She said while blinking, "How many spicy gluten and ice cream can I buy with that?" The people were speechless to hear that. Su Yuhan took a tissue and wiped her mouth. She said angrily, "Look at how fat you are. You still know how to eat." Yichun was slightly stunned. Subsequently, he said in between tears and laughter, "I could buy a lot of them. You won't be able to finish them anyway." "Sure, sure, Daddy." Meng Meng was elated. Yichun nodded and picked up the document and pen. He held the little girl's hand and signed the name Yi Meng Meng. He even pressed his fingerprint on it. He said while smiling, "Remember, if anyone says that you're poor in the future, tell them that you've inherited 100 billion and that you're a rich lady." Dead silence filled the place. Murong Shue's eyeballs almost popped out. "That's all of the Murong clan's assets. It's up to 100 billion, and you're giving it to a kid just like that? Must you be so stubborn?" Chapter 300. The genius stay-at-home dad is in the city. Chapter 300. Didn't you hear me asking you to get lost? Third update. Urban romance. G-Kickums. Add a bookmark. Recommend book. Didn't you hear me asking you to get lost? I told you to get lost. Didn't you hear me? At the dining table, everyone was dumbstruck. The people were dumbstruck. Nobody had expected Yichun to transfer hundreds of billions of the Murong family's assets to his daughter. Even Su Yuhan was no exception. At that moment, everyone had mixed feelings. Murong Shue, in particular, could not hide the envy in her eyes when she looked at Meng Meng. She was not even 5 years old, was she not? She was already a billionaire. If her assets were exposed, she could enter the Forbes richest women list directly. It would be a piece of cake for her to top the list. However, Yi Chun ignored the people's stares. Instead, he looked at Yushasha and said, "What did you study in university?" "Business administration and finance." Yushasha was stunned. She asked, "What's wrong?" "I've implicated you because of me. To apologize, I'll give you two options now." Yi Chun smiled calmly and said, "Firstly, I'll give you 100 million yuan directly as compensation for your psychological damage. Secondly, you'll be in charge of the Morong family." What did you say?" Yushasha was stunned. She was not the only one. The rest were shocked too. Morong Yin forced a smile. Yi Chun was trying to make the Liu family a mere figurehead. He did not trust them after all. However, deep down, he did not think much of it. Although he was loyal to Yi Chun now, it did not mean that he could accept a girl who knew nothing climbing over his head. Morong Shui was so shocked that she almost screamed. Clearly, she did not expect Yi Chun to make such a decision. Subsequently, she felt a little indignant. Why? Why are you only giving benefits to Yushasha and not me? I've helped you after all. In terms of ability and shrewdness, I'm stronger than Yushasha. Yi Chun said nothing. He was only looking at Yushasha. Reminder, please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading. He had come up with this idea on the spur of the moment. He needed a representative. Although the Morong family had surrendered, he definitely couldn't hand it over to the Morong family's own people to manage. Since he didn't know many people in Gan province, after much consideration, he still chose Yushasha. He wasn't afraid that Yushasha wasn't capable and wouldn't submit to the masses, but he was afraid that Yushasha wouldn't accept him. Suppressing the shock in her heart, Yushasha shook her head and said, "I won't choose any of them." As soon as he said that, everyone was astonished. Even Su Yuhan could not help but look at her with interest. Yi Chun said coldly, "Why?" Yushasha bit her lip and said, "Yi Chun, I admit that I'm tempted by the 100 million yuan, and I'm tempted to take over the Morong clan. I know that you're trying to compensate me, but there's no need for that. I'm not someone who expects favors from others, and I know my limits." At this point, she smiled sweetly again. "If you really want to thank me, just treat me to a good meal." Hearing this, Morong Shui was over the moon. She wanted to stand up by instinct and tell Yi Chun that she could do it. "I choose you." However, Yi Chun made the decision while looking at Yushasha. He turned his head to look at Morong Yin next to him after saying that. He pointed at Yushasha and said, "He'll be my representative from now on. You guys must listen to him and don't resist. If you can't do it at all, there's no need for the Morong clan to exist anymore." Morong Yin secretly jolted upon sensing the coldness in his words. He said immediately, "We'll definitely support her. Don't worry." Morong Shui was so mad that she almost bled when she saw Yushasha become the Morong clan leader without even realizing it. She wanted to ask Yi Chun why, but she did not have the courage to do so. After the meal, a member of the Morong clan walked in quickly and said respectfully, "Master, there are a lot of Gan province's big shots outside who want to see you." All right, they also brought a lot of gifts. One of them even brought 1,000-year-old ginseng. "Tell them that I'm busy. Get them to leave the things behind." Yi Chun carried the little girl and did not even turn his head. He added at the end of his sentence, "Those who brought the 1,000-year-old ginseng can stay." The person walked out after being stunned for a moment. Yi Chun then looked at Morong Yin. "Where's the spiritual medicine mountain?" "It's in Lomnan." Morong Yin was secretly shocked. Clearly, he thought that Yi Chun was going to attack the spiritual medicine mountain. "Yi Chun, are you going to Lomnan?" Su Yuhan, who was standing aside, said rather unhappily while frowning. They had agreed to return to Tiannan to get married after settling the matters with the Ghost Rider sect. However, this guy had made things worse. Men are all pigs." Yi Chun was not sure whether to laugh or cry upon hearing her complaint. He said, "Someone owes me something, so I'm going there to collect the debt." He had to go to the spiritual medicine mountain. He wanted to see if there were any herbs that he could use in the only alchemy sect left in China. Moreover, was it that easy to go back on his word? Morong Yin left with his people after telling Yi Chun more about the spiritual medicine mountain, leaving the space for Yi Chun's family. On the other hand, Morong Shui stayed behind on purpose. After Yushasha left, She turned her head to look at Yi Chun with a conflicted expression. She said weakly, "Actually, I can take over the Murong clan." She had been holding that in for a long time. Nobody would be willing to be under someone else. Tip: please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading, / moreover, it was her. No matter where she was, Yu Shasha was worse than her. Although they were best friends, she, Murong Shui, was always the one making the decisions. Now, her best friend was above her all of a sudden. How was she supposed to take it? Therefore, she stayed behind Yu Shasha's back on purpose. She wanted Yi Chun to change his mind. However, Yi Chun gave a short response and said in a neutral tone, "I know. You may leave now." Murong Shui was slightly stunned. She said again, unwilling to give up, "Shasha can't control the Murong clan's elders, but I can. You really should consider it." She could not help but feel rather proud as she spoke to this point. "I asked you to get lost. Didn't you hear me?" Yi Chun lifted his eyes to look at her, his voice extremely cold. Murong Shui frowned. I admit that no matter if it's your character, ability, or appearance, you're more powerful than Yu Shasha. Not just a little bit more powerful." Yi Chun chuckled softly. His gaze was extremely deep. "But so what? I don't like you. Your so-called schemes are just petty tricks to me. Yi Chun, don't want capable people. I want people who listen to me." "I can't," Murong Shui said immediately. "You can't." Yi Chun interrupted her, his smile rather cold. "In the entire Ganzhou, only you and Yu Shasha are close to me. However, when I killed Murong Yang and the Murong clan came after me, Yu Shasha was the only one who got hurt. You were safe. Don't tell me that you're safe because you're from the Murong clan. Don't think that I don't know what role you played in this." Murong Shui panicked a little when she met his gaze. She looked around. In reality, on the day that Yi Chun was exposed as the murderer, Murong Shui wanted to betray Yi Chun to get the opportunity to enter the Murong clan's upper echelon. However, she ended up dragging Yu Shasha into this instead. She smiled bitterly and walked out without saying a word. Under Yi Chun's stare, she felt that she had no secrets at all. He was right. Her shrewdness was just petty tricks to him. Petty tricks. After she left, Yi Chun called Murong Yin over and asked, "Where's the person who brought the 1,000-year-old ginseng?" Chapter 301. In the living room of the Murong family, Sui Ming Xiao Suo said. Two figures sat on the sofa, looking out of the living room from time to time. There was some nervousness and apprehension between their brows. They were Hui Yushan and his daughter. Hui Sisi stood up and paced back and forth in the living room. She was very restless. Eventually, she could not help but look at Hui Yushan, who was standing aside. "Dad, what do you mean by Yi? He took our 1,000-year-old ginseng, but he didn't come out for half a day." "Watch your words. Watch your words." Hui Yushan looked outside the house immediately. He glared at her when he saw that there was no one around. Spiritual Master Yi is not only a martial Dao master, but he's also an illuminating God spell master. You can't be so rude. Only then did Hui Sisi stop talking and mumbled, "Do you think that Yi is trying to deny us that 1,000-year-old ginseng?" One had to know that the 1,000-year-old ginseng was an heirloom of the Hui family's dojo. Hui Yushan treasured it so much that he never let anyone touch it. He couldn't bear to eat it even when he was injured from sparring. Just when Hui Yushan was going to speak, he suddenly looked out of the living room. He saw Yi Chun walking over. "I'm sorry to have kept you guys waiting." No. Hui Yushan hurriedly smiled. Hui Sisi secretly curled her lips. Yi Chun said, while smiling calmly after getting him to take a seat, "I wonder where you got the 1,000-year-old ginseng from, Master Hui." "It's a family heirloom. It's said that the third generation of the Hui family won it in a martial arts competition abroad," Hui Yushan explained. Yi Chun nodded and went straight to the point. "Since Master Hui gave me the ancestral item, I'm sure there's something you need my help with. Just tell me." A 1,000-year-old herb was extremely rare even in the cultivation world, let alone on Earth. Moreover, even if he had the immortal drift bottle, it would take a long time to cultivate a 1,000-year-old herb. Hui Yushan stood up and clasped his fists at Yi Chun. He said in all seriousness, "If I'm not mistaken, Seiji is the #1 in China, the #1 on the heaven leaderboard, Mad Southern Yi." As soon as he said that, Huasisi was stunned and stammered. Dad, what did you say? He's Mad Southerny? It was no wonder she was so shocked. The world only knew the name of Mad Southerny, but they did not know that his real name was Yichun. Moreover, Yichun had always been active in Tian'an, Jiangbei, and Beijing. He met their gazes. Yichun smiled lightly and silently admitted it. Rumor has it that Mad Southerny is only 30 years old and likes to exterminate families. It seems like it's true. Hui Yushan sighed softly. Huasisi's face immediately turned red. After hearing that Yichun was Mad Southerny, she suddenly felt very shy, as if she was facing her idol at a close distance. I like exterminating entire families? Yichun was between laughter and tears when he heard that. Hui Yushan took a deep breath and said, Mr. Yi, I've been stuck below the innate stage for a very long time. Today, I'll be thick-skinned and ask for guidance from you. Are you trying to break through to the innate stage and become a martial Dao master? Yichun glanced at him and came to a realization when he noticed that his cultivation base was at the peak of illuminating pulse. Hui Yushan immediately nodded. This was the lifelong determination of every martial artist. Yichun chuckled softly. It's not impossible for you to break through to the innate stage, but you have to promise me something. Please tell me what it is, Mr. Yi. Joy flashed through Hui Yushan's face. If I help you break through to martial Dao master, you'll be the Murong clan's advisor and help me support Yushasha. The time limit is 10 years. You can stay or leave after 10 years, Yichun said. I'm willing. Hui Yushan agreed to it almost without thinking about it. 10 years. Only 10 years. Not only could he become a martial Dao master, but he could also enjoy the Murong clan's advisor. It was such a great deal that nobody would reject. Can you really help my dad break through? Huasisi looked surprised. Yichun smiled, and a red medicinal pill appeared in his hand. This is the Martial Alliance's breakthrough pill. I don't think I need to tell you about its effect, do I? What? Hui Yushan was shocked and in slight disbelief. Is it the medicinal pill that can help an illuminating pulse martial artist break through to the innate stage instantly? You'll know after you eat it. Yichun smiled. With a flick of his finger, the medicinal pill landed in his hand. Although such a medicinal pill was nothing to him, it was no different from a magical pill to others. Hui Yushan swallowed it in excitement as soon as he took it. Subsequently, he felt the medicinal pill turn into an extremely pure energy that flowed into his body. Perhaps because the energy was too violent, it directly tore through his clothes, and his skin also cracked into countless wounds. Dad, Huasisi's expression changed. Don't worry, he's just too eager for success. Yichun shook his head and flicked his finger. Spiritual energy shot into Hui Yushan's body, suppressing the violent energy in his body. Over 20 minutes later, as the sound of beans being fried came, a shocking energy exploded from Hui Yushan's body all of a sudden. The white hair on his head turned from white to black while the wrinkles on his face faded away slowly. If he looked like he was 50 years old earlier, he looked like a hunk in his 30s at the moment. Ha ha! Hui Yushan opened his eyes, and a gleam shot out of them. His aura was shocking, and he could not hide the elation on his face. Dad, you broke through? Huasisi was pleasantly surprised. Hui Yushan nodded and turned his head to bow at Yichun in all seriousness. He said while clasping his fists, "Thank you for your help, Mr. Yi. What you've done is no different from giving me a new lease on life. I'll definitely keep my promise." Meanwhile, a storm was set off in his heart. What Yichun did was equivalent to creating a martial Dao master. Didn't that mean that he could create even more? For example, 10, 100, or even 1,000. At that time, how terrifying would that be? Not to mention 1,000. Even if 100 grandmasters joined forces and flew directly to Japan, it would be enough to sink the country. Of course, this was only in theory. Although martial Dao grandmasters were powerful, they were still afraid of missiles. However, he was overthinking. Yichun only had a few breakthrough pills with him, and they were obtained from the Martial Alliance's treasure vault. Although he could refine them, he lacked the materials. Furthermore, the zone-breaking pill could only be used on illuminating pulse experts. It would not be easy for him to find hundreds of loyal illuminating pulse experts in such a short time. Huasisi was equally grateful. Grandmaster Yi, thank you. You're welcome. I'm just taking what I need. Yichen shook his head and said, You and your daughter can move to the Murong residence from now on. You can bring your dojo here too. Hui Yushan nodded in agreement. At the same time, at the spiritual medicine mountain, Yao Bingyue stared blankly at the video on her phone. The video showed Yichen fighting Murong He until he killed Murong He. Clatter. Her body jolted, and her phone dropped onto the ground. Her face was pale and filled with intense fear. Murong He is dead. One must know that he was an illuminating god expert, just like her grandfather. Since Yi Chun could kill him, did that not mean that he could kill her grandfather too? A strong sense of regret emerged in his heart. Murong He is dead. He'll definitely come for me. Her face was getting paler as she thought to this point. Subsequently, it was replaced by a smirk again. My spiritual medicine mountain has a registration technique. Even if he comes, he can't do anything to me. P.S. There's one more chapter. ETA, 12:30 p.m. Chapter 302. The second day after Murong family's matters were settled, Yichen walked out of the Murong residence with a mother and daughter. There was a red Renault Sherpa parked at the entrance. The car looked very mechanical. Yichen could not help but be surprised. One must know that although such a car only cost over 2 million yuan, it was the standard off-road vehicle for NATO troops. It even shocked the world at the Dakar rally. Yushasha said while standing aside, Brother Yi, if you guys are going to Long Nan, the mountain roads won't be easy. Just drive these 2 off-road vehicles. Ever since Yi Chan appointed her to manage the Murong clan yesterday, the girl had shown a side of her that she had never shown before. Although she was still a little immature, Yi Chen thought highly of her. There were old people in the Murong clan who were not convinced. However, when Hui Yushan unleashed his master's aura, everyone had to be convinced. Thanks. Yi Chen nodded in satisfaction. He carried Meng Meng and sat in the car, while Yi Wushuang sat in the passenger seat. After everyone was seated, Yu Sha was a little reluctant all of a sudden. Brother Yi, are you guys coming back? No, we'll go to Lanzhou directly. Yi Chen shook his head. Yu Sha said with red eyes, Brother Yi, Sister Su, Brother Wushuang, you guys must come back to visit me when you're free. I can visit you guys too. Sure. Yi Chen nodded and drove away after starting the car. Yu Sha watched the car drive away and was in a daze. Brother Yi, I know that we're not from the same world. I also know that you gave me everything that I have today. Don't worry. I definitely won't let you down. I'll strive to be one step closer to you. To be honest, the off-road vehicle that Yu Sha gave him was extraordinarily stable. As soon as Yi Chen drove out of the suburbs of Longxi County, the road became much more bumpy. However, the people in the car still felt like they were driving on flat ground. Su Yuhan, on the other hand, covered her mouth, feeling rather uncomfortable. What's wrong? Car sick? Yi Chen stopped and turned his head to ask. A little. I'm not sure if it's because it's a new car, but I can't shake the stench in the car, Su Yuhan said while looking pale. Noticing that her mother was uncomfortable, the little girl took out a tangerine and said obediently, Here, have a tangerine, Mommy. Give me your hand, Yi Chen said while smiling. What happened? Su Yuhan was stunned, but she extended her hand to him anyway. Yi Chen held her soft little hand and lowered his head to kiss it. All right, you won't get carsick now. Die. Su Yuhan was so angry that she almost slapped him. I'm already in this state, and you still have the mood to take advantage of me and joke with me. Besides, Wu Shuang is still watching from aside. But in the next moment, she discovered that a warm current flowed from the back of her hand into her body. When it reached her chest, the previous nausea disappeared. Yi Chen said while smiling, Do you believe me now? Scram. Su Yuhan glared at him angrily. Drive your car properly. I'll call my parents first and ask them how they're doing. Yi Chen could only start the engine again. He found out from Murong Yin that the spiritual medicine mountain was located in Ganlu town in the Longnan County. On the map, it was more than 500 miles away from Longxi. However, based on the exact route, it should be more than 800 miles away. The spiritual medicine mountain had been in Ganlu town since 200 years ago due to their expertise in refining medicinal pills and medicine. They had a high prestige in the local area. Anyone who walked out of the spiritual medicine mountain was treated as an immortal, a living god. Although they only lived in a small town, they were famous in the entire China. In reality, that was the reality of the cultivation world. In the cultivation world, cultivators would stay away from the secular world and hide in the famous mountains and rivers. Peace and quiet were secondary, but the main reason was that there were many trees in the forest. In terms of spiritual energy, it was much more abundant than in the secular world. The Murong clan was an example. Their influence covered the entire Ganzhou, but they settled their ancestral home in a county and organized a medicinal pill exchange. All the bosses in Ganzhou came all the way here. Yi Chen's car drove into a small town when it was close to past 10 a.m. recalling that Su Yuhan and Meng Meng had not had breakfast before they left. Yi Chen parked the car at the entrance of a restaurant. He went to the gas station to refuel after the mother and daughter had eaten. Just when Yi Chen parked the car at the gas station, a piece of chewing gum floated over. Yi Chen lifted his arm and waved, and the piece of chewing gum fell onto the ground. He looked in the direction where the chewing gum came from with a grim expression. He saw a Land Rover Range Rover parked in front of him. There was an old man in Armani and a Chinese tunic suit in the car. The young man's back was facing him. Seeming to have sensed Yi Chen's gaze, the young man peeked his head out of the car window to look at Yi Chen. He exclaimed, "Yo, I can't believe I saw a Renault Sherpa in this lousy place." He could not help but ask Yi Chen as he spoke to this point, "Brat, where did you get it?" Yi Chen looked away and did not look at him anymore. The young man was rather pissed that he ignored him. He wanted to get out of the car by instinct, but the old man in the Chinese tunic suit next to him said in his deep voice, "Young Master Yang, don't be a busybody." Only then did young Master Yang close the car door with a curse. The Renault Sherpa wasn't worth much, especially in the eyes of the Yang family. He was just surprised. Soon his tank was full. He started the engine and drove out. Yi Chen drove to the fuel depot and filled it with 60 liters of fuel. In fact, he had an idea. Should he knock out the staff at the gas station and collect some gasoline to store in his storage ring for backup? But after thinking about it, he decided not to. After filling up the tank, Yi Chen drove out of the gas station and headed to the mountain road that led to Longnan. At that moment, a Land Rover drove over from behind and drove side by side with him. The young man from before peeked his head out of the car and gave Yi Chen the middle finger. "Brat, do you dare to race with me?" He was upset that Yi Chen ignored him earlier. He initially thought that they would part ways at the gas station. Never had he thought that they would go the same way. Thus, he couldn't help but feel competitive. Hearing this, the old man beside him spoke up once more. "Young Master Yang, don't worry about it, Mr. Wan. I'm just competing with him in terms of speed." Young Master Yang shook his head, not bothered at all. He looked at Yi Chen again. "Brat, do you dare?" Chapter 303. After exchanging a punch with Yi Chen's expression changed drastically. The giant medicine man only managed to stop after being pushed over 20 meters away. Meanwhile, there was a long ravine between him and Yi Chen. The gully was more than 10 feet wide. The moment Yao Huayuan exclaimed, the smile on Yao Bingyue's face froze. She was in disbelief. Yang Feiyu and Wan Qian were already stunned on the spot. There was intense fear in Yao Huayuan's eyes when he looked at Yi Chen. "Young man, do you know the body temper method too? Is this what you're relying on?" Yi Chen said with his hands behind his back. "Hee." Yao Huayuan smiled coldly. "You underestimate me too much, and you also underestimate the medicine man. That was just a warm-up. Now, I'll let you experience what true despair is." The bell in his hand rang again, and, at the same time, he suddenly shouted, "Medicine man, use the giant devil body refining technique." As his voice fell, the giant in the distance suddenly let out a roar. Clatter, clatter, clatter. A series of crisp sounds came from his body, and he actually began to swell. His arms, which were originally as thick as an adult's thigh, suddenly became as thick as a water bucket. The muscles and blue veins on them were like poisonous snakes baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Bang! The clothes on his body suddenly burst open and turned into shreds, and his original height of 5 meters had skyrocketed to more than 3 meters. From afar, he looked like a giant humanoid titan. His entire body was filled with a violent aura that wanted to destroy everything. Junior, this is the Herdman's ultimate battle power. The reason why I am unwilling to use it is because I can only use it once. Once I use it, the price is that the Herdman's potential will be exhausted. But you forced me to do this. Yao Huiyuan's gloomy voice rang out. Medicine man, kill him. Bang, bang, bang. The giant sprinted toward Yi Chun. Just like before, the ground would shake violently with every step he took, creating a huge hole under his feet. The next moment, the giant suddenly opened his arms and pounced at Yi Chun. Clearly, he wanted to hug Yi Chun and strangle him with brute force. Yang Feiyu could not help but swallow his saliva. Goodness gracious! If you were hugged by this blockhead, your bones would be crushed to pieces, and you might even be crushed into a meat patty. Stubborn fool. Yi Chun scoffed and grabbed a stone lion next to him. The stone lion that weighed 2 tons was caught in his hand. Roar! The stone lion seemed to have come to life. Its huge body immediately smashed towards the giant. The giant roared angrily and hurriedly retracted his hands before punching the stone lion. Boom! The stone lion suddenly exploded, and countless gravels scattered in all directions. Yao Huiyuan and Wan Qian simultaneously condensed a profound qi barrier, which intercepted the gravel flying towards them. He looked again. The giant's huge body was like a ball that was kicked away. It flew backward for hundreds of meters and finally smashed into a stone wall, creating a human-shaped hole. Plop! He knelt heavily on the ground, his body twitching uncontrollably. His arms hung limply at his side, clearly broken. Yang Feiyu, Wan Qian, and the rest who were standing aside were so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out. That was a giant that weighed 700 to 800 kilograms, but he was like a half-grown baby facing Yi Chun now. This man must be a physique refinement master. Yao Huiyuan's expression was uncertain. He could not think of anyone in China who had such a powerful body and strength. On top of that, he was a spell master as well. They say that the China #1, Mad Southern Yi, is extremely powerful. To me, I don't think the junior before me is any weaker than Mad Southern Yi. Damn it, I can't believe that my spiritual medicine mountain has offended such a person. Yao Huiyuan thought to himself, but he did not hesitate at all. He pulled out a sharp blade from behind him. The blade was rusted all over, and there were runes and incantations made with cinnabar around it. It exuded a heavy, ancient, and desolate aura as soon as he pulled it out. Is it a magic tool? Wan Qian's expression changed slightly. Meanwhile, Yao Bingwei revealed an excited expression. Junior, this is the ancient saber that's been passed down in the spiritual medicine mountain for generations. It's called the Master Destruction Saber. Every mountain master of the spiritual medicine mountain has used it to kill a master. I've never used it in my generation. Forget it. I'll use your blood to scare the people in the outside world. Yao Huiyuan held the Master Destruction Saber before his chest and consolidated majestic, mysterious qi. Subsequently, he swung it at Yi Chun in the air. Slash! A sharp saber qi shot out of the saber. At that moment, an ear-piercing explosion came in the air as the saber qi tore it apart. The saber qi split the ground into two as it charged at Yi Chun, creating a long ravine. The Master Destruction Saber, Wan Qian exclaimed. Clearly, he recognized it. During the few years that he was learning from the leader of Hong Kong's southern sect, Xiao Bai, he had heard that the spiritual medicine mountain had a saber that had been passed down for generations. The saber rarely appeared, but a martial Dao master would be killed by it every time it appeared. Back then, he thought it was just a rumor. Never had he thought that it was real. Yao Bingwei smiled. Yi Chun, don't you have a powerful body? Take it with your body if you're so capable. Umph. Yi Chun scoffed and stretched his arm out. He really grabbed the sharp saber qi with his fingers as if he was provoked by what Yao Bingwei said. Idiot! Yao Bingwei chuckled. This saber can kill a master, but you're grabbing it with your bare hands. You're asking for death. Gotcha. In the next second, the sharp saber chi that could slice a car in half was stopped by Yi Chen's fingers directly. Yi Chen used a little force. He crushed the saber chi instantly, turning it into chaotic and sharp energy that charged at Yao Huayuan. Caught off guard, Yao Huayuan was hit by a couple of energy. His right arm was severed by the energy. Ah! He shrieked and knelt onto the ground. Blood splattered on Yao Bingyue's face. Dead silence filled the place. He had lost. Yao Huayuan had lost. Yao Huayuan had used everything he had. First, it was the mountain defense formation, followed by the martial Dao master puppet, and then the master destruction saber. Such a technique was enough to kill any martial Dao master. However, Yi Chen had broken through it completely. He was too powerful. He was too terrifying. Yang Feiyu and Wan Qian were shaking inside. Is this the spiritual medicine mountains technique? That's all you got. How dare you go back on your word? Yi Chen scoffed and walked toward Yao Huayuan one step after another. The killing intent on his body grew with each step he took. Yao Huayuan had despair on his face. Yao Binghua looked at Yi Chen, who was walking over with fear written all over her face. Her body could not stop shaking. She suddenly knelt hard onto the ground and kowtowed like she was pounding garlic. No, don't kill us. Yi Chen, Master Yi, I apologize to you. We'll agree to whatever you want. Chapter 304. Mr. Yi, I was wrong. I was wrong. Yao Binghua kowtowed so hard that her forehead soon broke. There were blood stains all over the ground. It was a terrifying sight. Yi Chen's series of techniques had completely crushed her psychological defense. He had even crushed her pride and dignity. At that moment, she finally knew what kind of person she had offended for the spiritual medicine mountain. If she had the chance to regret, she definitely would not have scammed Yi Chen for the heart-repairing pill. Instead, she would have traded with him nicely. She would not have encouraged Murong Yang to attack Yi Chen. Mr. Yi, it's our fault. Yao Huayuan, who had lost an arm, struggled to stand up from the ground. He looked even older now. It's my fault for not teaching Binghua what she did. I, Yao Huayuan, am willing to give you an explanation. I just hope that you can spare Binghua's life. Yi Chen chuckled softly. What explanation are you going to give me? I can agree to all of your conditions, Mr. Yi. You can take whatever you want from the entire spiritual medicine mountain. Yao Huayuan forced a smile. He knew very well what his decision meant. However, what was the use of that? They were in the wrong first, and they were no match for Yi Chen. They could only suffer in silence. Standing aside, Wan Qian watched everything with a complicated expression. Who would have thought that the spiritual medicine mountain that everyone in China yearned for, that had been passed down for hundreds of years, would end up like this? It was all because they had offended a young man. If news of this got out, people would definitely be so shocked that they would be speechless. What do you think, Mr. Yi? Yao Huayuan looked at Yi Chen with a pleading expression. To him, he had given in a lot. He thought that Yi Chen's rage should be almost gone now. It's not enough. However, Yi Chen shook his head. Yao Huayuan's face turned pale as soon as he said that. He looked even older now. Blood was dripping from the corner of his lips. I wonder if it's enough if I kill myself before you today, Mr. Yi. He had a son when he was old, but his son had died young due to a serious illness. Yao Binghua was his only granddaughter now. He was afraid that she would melt in his mouth and fall in his hands. Therefore, he had spoiled Yao Binghua's lawless personality. Grandpa, Yao Binghua screamed and said to Yi Chen immediately, Mr. Yi, it has nothing to do with my grandpa. It's all my fault. I'm willing to give you an explanation. After saying this, a look of determination flashed across her face. A dagger appeared in her hand, and she stabbed it directly at the position of her heart. Binghua, don't. Yao Huayuan's face changed, but it was already too late by the time he wanted to stop it. He couldn't help feeling despair. Ding! Yi Chen flicked his finger, and a spiritual power spiral shot at Yao Binghua directly. The dagger in her hand flew out just when it was about to pierce her body. Mr. Yi, what exactly do you want to do? Yao Binghua had a bitter expression on her face. Yi Chen took a step out and said, although you guys deserve death for offending me, considering that you guys are the only descendants of the spiritual medicine mountain, you guys are still useful to me. Therefore, hearing this, Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue were overjoyed. However, he heard Yi Chun say, "You can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment." He raised his hand and pointed at Yao Huayuan, who was beside him, and cast a cultivation spell, soul-seizing life, extinguishing finger. You clearly knew that your granddaughter was in the wrong first, yet you still shielded her and even tried to kill me. Therefore, I will take 3 years of your lifespan as punishment. His voice fell. Yao Huayuan's body emitted a green light. As soon as the light left his body, Yao Huayuan's body rapidly aged. His face suddenly became extremely pale, and his hair turned white. His old face now looked like the bark of a tree. Plop! He felt as if his body had been sucked dry. He no longer had the strength to stand and fell heavily to the ground. He was like an old man with 1 foot in the grave. He could not help but be shocked because Yi Chen's finger had directly taken away his life force, essence, and spirit. He only had less than 5 years of lifespan. Now that Yi Chun had taken away 3 years, he had less than 2 years left. However, Yi Chun ignored him. Instead, he looked at Yao Bingyue. "You were greedy when you saw the benefits. That's unjust. Then, you broke the promise. That's not sincere. I'll take 50 years of your lifespan today." Yi Chun pointed again when the last one landed. The next moment, Yao Bingyue's originally black and beautiful hair suddenly turned white. Her originally delicate skin quickly wrinkled, and her tall and exquisite body began to shrink. Her body slightly bent, and she turned into a hunchbacked old woman. "No, no!" Yao Bingyue was terrified. Her voice was extremely sharp and hoarse, like an old woman's. To every woman, the most precious thing was their youth, beauty, and body. Now, Yi Chun had taken away all of her pride. It was more painful than killing her. However, no matter how she screamed, she could not change the truth. Yang Feiyu and Wan Qian had goosebumps watching that. Wan Qian, in particular, was the successor of the southern sect of Hong Kong. He claimed to be knowledgeable, but he had never seen such a strange scene. What technique was that? It could take away a person's lifespan by force. It was even more powerful than the legendary book of life and death and the judge's brush. Wan Qian's respect for Yi Chun rose to the peak as he thought to this point. It's a godly technique. It's definitely a godly technique. Yang Feiyu retreated a few steps back, not daring to get close to Yi Chun at all. He was afraid that Yi Chun would point at him all of a sudden. "I'm still so handsome, and there are so many chicks waiting for me. I can't be like them." Yao Huayuan sat on the ground, panting heavily. He looked at Yi Chun extremely weakly and said while slurring, "Mr. Yi, please kill me. I'm begging you. I am so tired." He felt even worse than before. It was as if even moving was tiring. Most importantly, all the organs in his body had failed. Sooner or later, there would be all sorts of complications. By then, he would be in excruciating pain. It was something that every old man feared to face. At that moment, Su Yuhan walked over while carrying the little girl. She said with pity on her pretty face, "Yi Chun, have we been too cruel?" Yi Chun shook his head lightly and looked at Yao Huayuan and his granddaughter in a condescending manner. He said expressionlessly, "You guys must know that I can make you guys live, and I can make you guys die. I can make you guys old, and I can make you guys younger. The reason why I'm not killing you guys is that you guys are still useful to me. As long as you guys perform well from now on and be loyal to me, I can consider returning you guys your youth." Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue's despairing faces lit up with a glimmer of hope. No one was not afraid of death. No one would not care about their appearance. Even they were no exception. Yi Chun said calmly when he met their gazes, "To tell you the truth, not only can I refine the heart-repairing pill that can increase one's lifespan, but I can also refine the youth restoration pill and the youth restoration pill." Hearing this, everyone was so shocked that they couldn't say a word. A moment later, Yao Huayuan stood up shakily with Yao Bingyue's support. He bowed at Yi Chun and stammered, "From now on, the spiritual medicine mountain will respect you, sir." Chapter 305. From now on, I, Yao Bingyue, Swear to be loyal to Mr. Yi. If I go against him, I'll be abandoned by both man and God. Yao Bingwe followed Yao Huayuan's actions and expressed her loyalty to Yi Chun. However, she was secretly bitter. She knew that the spiritual medicine mountain that her Yao family had passed down for hundreds of years now belonged to Yi Chun. It would be a lie to say that he did not feel heartache. But what could he do? Both of them had their lifespans taken away by Yi Chun. If they did not accept him, they definitely would not live for more than a few years. When they were dead, the spiritual medicine mountain would still belong to Yi Chun. Yi Chun nodded and lifted his eyes to look at Yang Feiyu and Wan Qian next to him. Meeting his gaze, Yang Feiyu subconsciously said, "Brother Yi, oh no, Mr. Yi, we still have something to do, so we won't stay any longer." With that, he grabbed Wan Qian's hand and was about to leave. Now, he dare not call Yi Chun brother anymore. Wan Qian clasped his fists at Yi Chun. "Wait!" Yi Chun suddenly stopped them. Yang Feiyu turned around and looked at him anxiously. He stammered, "Brother Yi, don't point at me. I didn't offend you." He was afraid that Yi Chun would suddenly point at him. Even Wan Qian's face turned pale. He thought Yi Chun was going to blame him for underestimating him earlier. Yi Chun was in between tears and laughter when he saw the duo keeping quiet. "Brother Yang, didn't you come to the spiritual medicine mountain to get medicine for your father? What, now you don't want it anymore?" Yang Feiyu rolled his eyes and thought to himself, with a situation like this, do I still dare to speak? However, he realized what Yi Chun was trying to say. He was elated. "What do you mean, Mr. Yi?" Yi Chun flicked his finger and a red medicinal pill shot at him. He said calmly, "This is a body refinement pill. It's enough to save your father. Take it." Yang Feiyu subconsciously grabbed the body-tempering pill in his hand and examined it closely. He saw that the pill in his hand had a red glow to it, and it was also emitting a strange medicinal fragrance. Just smelling it made him feel 100 times more spirited. He could not help but be ecstatic. "Mr. Yi, can this really cure my father's uremia?" "Of course." Yi Chun smiled calmly. Treating uremia aside, he could even treat cancer without a problem. At the same time, Wan Qian also felt the uniqueness of the body-tempering pill and couldn't help but exclaim, This is a top-grade medicinal pill. What's a supreme-grade medicinal pill?" Yi Chun was surprised. The body-tempering pill was just an elixir that he had casually refined. The medicinal ingredients used were not very precious. In the cultivation world, it was not worth much. Yao Huayuan, who was at the side, coughed violently a few times and said slowly, "Mr. Yi, we've divided the medicinal pills into a few grades. They are low-grade medicinal pills, middle-grade medicinal pills, high-grade medicinal pills, and supreme-grade medicinal pills. The quality of the medicinal pills can be distinguished by their color." At this point, he paused for a moment. The body-tempering pill that Mr. Yi took out is a supreme-grade pill. Even I can't refine it. Not bad. Wan Qian nodded and looked at Yang Feiyu enviously. This body-refining pill was not only useful for ordinary people, but it was also very useful for him. "Oh," Yi Chun responded calmly. In the cultivation world, medicinal pills were categorized from grade 1 to grade 9. Those above grade 9 were immortal pills. The so-called supreme-grade medicinal pills that Yao Huayuan and the rest mentioned were grade 2 at most in the cultivation world. "Mr. Yi, I wonder what price you'll have to pay for your generosity?" Yang Feiyu asked. As a member of the Yang family of Hong Kong, naturally, he knew that there was no free lunch in this world. "There's no need for that. I just like how you look." Yi Chun shook his head lightly. Along the way, he admired Yang Feiyu's character. Although he was a little arrogant as a disciple of a wealthy family, he was not arrogant or domineering. "Thank you. I'll bring my dad here to thank you personally when he recovers." Yang Feiyu bowed to Yi Chun in all seriousness and left with Wan Qian. Yi Chun lifted his eyes to look at Yao Huayuan. "Let's go. Bring us to your spiritual medicine mountain." Yao Huayuan nodded, feeling bitter inside. Yi Chun brought Su Yuhan and Meng Meng with him and followed immediately. There were mountains and rivers everywhere they passed. The spiritual energy did not dissipate. Even an ordinary person like Su Yuhan could sense the uniqueness of this place. Countless people from the spiritual medicine mountain who were standing by the side of the road stepped aside and made way for Yichun. They had complicated expressions on their faces. From now on, the spiritual medicine mountain would no longer belong to the Yao family, but to the Yi family. Over 10 minutes later, Yao Huayuan brought Yichun to a spacious place. There were trapezoidal spiritual fields as far as the eye could see. There were dense medicinal herbs planted in the spiritual fields. Jade Rashur mushroom, 50 years old, one of the ingredients used to refine the foundation-building pill. Its roots can also be boiled into soup and consumed to replenish spiritual energy. Fire pomegranate fruit, 30 years old. Ordinary people can see better after eating it. It's very effective in treating myopia and presbyopia. Silverhorn tree, 500 years old. Its branches resemble silver horns and can be used to refine flying swords and other would attribute magic tools. Tiger bone flower. Yi Chun scanned with his divine consciousness and identified all of the medicinal herbs before him. Most of them were ordinary medicinal herbs in the mortal world, such as Tianqi. However, there were some medicinal herbs that he could use. There were even tiger bone flowers and stargrass. He now had the medicinal herbs to refine medicinal pills for his daughter and the youth-retaining pill. He nodded to himself. He did not come for nothing. At that moment, he suddenly stopped walking and looked at a spiritual field 100 meters away. Subsequently, he walked to a plant that looked like wheat and exclaimed, "It's a spiritual grain." "Mr. Yi, what's a spiritual grain?" Yao Huayuan asked while panting as he was being held. He felt exhausted just by taking 2 steps. Yi Chen glanced at him. "Since you don't know what it's used for, why did you plant it here?" "We didn't plant it. It grew on its own. We thought it was a weed in the beginning, so we were going to uproot it," Yao Bingyue said while shaking her head. "Uproot it?" Hearing this, Yi Chen had the urge to slap them to death. He shook his head and said, "This is good stuff. The so-called spiritual grain is a plant that's different from ordinary rice. When its seeds are cooked into rice, they contain spiritual energy. Ordinary people can get rid of all diseases and strengthen their physique after eating it. Cultivators can improve their cultivation base after eating it. In the cultivation world, not all cultivators didn't eat. Some cultivators with low cultivation levels who didn't abstain from eating still needed to eat. And what he was eating was spiritual grains. This kind of thing was usually cultivated by the sect in the spirit fields, and it was taken care of by the low-level disciples. Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue were dumbstruck when they heard what Yi Chen said. Subsequently, they looked relieved. Food is the heaven of the people. Even the head of state was no exception. If they were to cultivate spiritual grains on a large scale and sell them to the public, it would cause an earthquake and would instantly overshadow Yuan Longping's hybrid rice. When we get back, get people to move all the herbs around the spirit grains and specially clear out a few spirit fields to plant spirit grains. Yi Chen instructed and said, "Bring me to the so-called treasures of the spiritual medicine mountain now." Chapter 306. Under Yao Huayuan's lead, Yi Chen arrived at the spiritual medicine mountain's forbidden area. The so-called forbidden area was actually a small palace that was built on its own. There were 4 old men guarding the entrance of the palace. Yi Chen scanned with his divine consciousness and realized that the 4 old men had a powerful cultivation base. They seemed to be on peak stage Dao entry. Such people would be bosses if they were outside. However, they were guarding the medicine pavilion now. Judging by that, it was no wonder that the spiritual medicine mountain had such a high position in China. "Mr. Yi, these 4 are the spiritual medicine mountain's guardian elders. Each of them has a key. To open the palace's door, you'll need my key and theirs," Yao Huayuan introduced while shaking. Yao Huayuan introduced with a trembling voice. Then, he took out his key and ordered, "Old Qi, please open the door of the medicine pavilion." The person called Old Qi was an old man in gray robes. He glanced at Yi Chen in fear and subsequently nodded at the other 3. They inserted their keys into the lock of the palace's door. The 5 keys rotated according to the 5 elements. Gotcha! The door opened. Just when Yi Chen was going in, Old Qi suddenly asked, "Mr. Yi, I wonder what you're going to do with my spiritual medicine mountain." I'll only take what I need. I won't touch the rest. You guys will take care of it, Yichin said while chuckling softly. He knew that the few of them were worried that he would take away all the things that they had collected for hundreds of years. If he were in the cultivation world, Yichin would definitely do that without hesitation. However, he was on Earth now, where resources were limited. Moreover, Yao Huayuan had surrendered to him, so it was unnecessary. Old Chi nodded lightly and retreated aside. Yao Huayuan smiled awkwardly. Please, Mr. Yi. Yichin nodded and walked into the palace first. A small enclosed space that was approximately 100 square meters came into his sight. There were rows of wooden shelves with many things placed in an orderly manner on them. Su Yuhan said in shock, "There are so many things. This is my spiritual medicine mountain's medicine pavilion. It's been here for hundreds of years. Our ancestor said that we can't open the medicine pavilion unless we have to." Yao Huayuan looked bitter. Hundreds of years of savings now belonged to Yichun. He could not smile. Yichun scanned with his divine consciousness and looked through all the so-called treasures. Although he was mentally prepared, there was still a hint of joy between his brows. 100-year-old sky thunder bamboo. It is reputed to be one of the 3 great divine woods. It can release a faint golden divine devilbane thunder, which is specialized in breaking through ghost out techniques. He immediately walked over and carefully examined the chopstick-length heaven thunder bamboo in his hand. Puchi. A faint golden bolt of lightning erupted from the heaven thunder bamboo, accompanied by a burst of crackling electric arcs. Seeing this scene, Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue were shocked. Clearly, they did not expect that the thing that they had kept for hundreds of years and that they had not been able to figure out would undergo such a huge change in Yichen's hands. "Big brother, is this sky thunder bamboo?" Yi Wushuang asked from aside. His great thunder sword came from Luoyang's Ning family. The Ning family's ancestors were a weaponsmithing family. They had unintentionally obtained a piece of heaven thunder bamboo, which was why they were able to forge the great thunder sword. "Not bad." Yichin smiled calmly and subsequently said while frowning, "But it's too young. What a pity." Although he said that, he wasn't disappointed at all because he still had the immortal drift bottle. He could use the immortal drift bottle to mature the heaven lightning bamboo and make it grow from 100 years to 500 years or even 1,000 years. As Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue watched in pain, Yichin put the heaven thunder bamboo away into his storage ring and looked around again. 1,000-year-old ginseng, 1,000-year-old knotweed. There were a total of 8,000-year-old herbs in the spiritual medicine mountain's medicine pavilion. They were well preserved. Yichin secretly nodded. It seemed like the spiritual medicine mountain understood that spiritual herbs had to be harvested after 1,000 years. They could not be cultivated anymore. This was because all living things had spirits, especially plants. When they reached a certain age, they would develop spiritual intelligence. When they realized that their fate was to be captured and used as medicine, they would run away. At that time, the losses would be great. Yichin did not take the few 1,000-year-old herbs, as they were not of much help to him. They were all mortal-grade herbs, so he might as well leave them to the spiritual medicine mountain. Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue were relieved to see that. To them, the few 1,000-year-old herbs were no different from the spiritual medicine mountain's lifeline. Subsequently, Yichun walked out of the medicine pavilion after putting away some things that were useful to him. Yao Huayuan arranged a place for them to stay immediately. "Daddy, I want to go play." The little Meng Meng carried the patriarch of hell and chased away the butterflies and bees that were flying around outside. "Go, but don't go too far." Yichin kissed his daughter. The little girl ran out while carrying the patriarch of hell in joy. "I'll watch over her." Su Yuhan followed, feeling a little worried. At that moment, Yichun, Yi Wushuang, and Yao Huayuan were the only ones left in the house. Yichin glanced at Yao Huayuan and said, all of a sudden, "Show me your Master Destruction Saber." When Yao Huayuan took out the Master Destruction Saber and swung the Saber Chi earlier, Yichin noticed that there was another aura in the Saber Chi. Connecting it to what Yao Huayuan had said before about many of the spiritual medicine mountain's mountain masters killing martial Dao masters with this saber, Yichin could not help but be interested. Yao Huayuan did not suspect anything. He handed the rusty Master Destruction saber to Yi Chun immediately and walked out after closing the door. "Brother, there's something wrong with this saber," Yi Wuxuang said in his deep voice. "You noticed that too?" Yi Chun glanced at him and then took a good look at the saber. However, he did not see anything out of the ordinary. He thought about it and covered the entire saber with his divine consciousness. He instantly felt a strange spiritual wave that made him dizzy. In the next second, the scene before him changed. He saw an old silhouette standing on a mountain that was tens of thousands of meters tall. He was holding a saber in his hand, and he stood still as if he had turned into a stone. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and lifted his head to look at the sky. An extremely powerful saber intent was released from his body, and the saber in his hand could not stop shaking. This man was trying to pull the saber out of the sky. At that moment, he seemed to have sensed something. He turned his head and looked straight at Yi Chun. The Heaven Saber, have killed my brothers, my parents, and my wife. I've killed everyone in the world. Who are you? How did it appear in my world? Could you be the Heaven Tao? Slash! He shouted as soon as he was done speaking. A saber chi that could destroy everything tore through the air and slashed at Yi Chun. If a regular person were to witness that, they would definitely stand on their feet. However, Yi Chun scoffed. How dare a mere remnant saber intent act so arrogantly before me? Chapter 307. Break it. Yi Chun activated his divine consciousness. His divine consciousness consolidated a golden longsword that was over 30 meters long in that space. The golden sword stirred a terrifying sword chi. It was like a roaring golden dragon as it slashed at the saber chi that was coming at him directly. Bang! The saber chi was crushed directly when it collided with the sword chi. The sword chi did not slow down at all and killed the old man with a single slash. Bang! The vast space was destroyed all of a sudden. Yi Chun only snapped back to his senses after taking 2 steps back. Yi Wuxuang went over to hold him immediately. He asked in worry, "Brother, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Yi Chun shook his head and looked at the Master Destruction saber again. He said, "I was right. There's some spiritual power left in this saber. Moreover, it's saber Tao." Saber Tao? Could it be left behind by the saber's original owner? Yi Wuxuang asked. "It should be." Yi Chun took a deep breath in and said, "Guess what I saw in his saber Tao?" He called himself Heaven Saber. He killed his brothers, his parents, and his wife to prove himself. He even tried to draw his saber at the sky. What happened after that? Yi Wuxuang looked serious. Later on, this person's saber intent actually discovered my divine sense and slashed at me. However, I broke it and neutralized the saber intent. Yi Chun said in his deep voice, "This man's saber Tao is extremely powerful. Moreover, it was a battle of spiritual power. Moreover, it was in his saber Tao world. If my divine consciousness wasn't materialized at the critical moment, he might have destroyed a sliver of my divine consciousness." Speaking to this point, Yi Chun's expression seemed rather serious. Although his body was invincible, his divine consciousness and cultivation base were not impressive. He would have to pay a price to materialize his divine consciousness. If that's the case, the original owner of this saber might have achieved supreme saber Tao. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to draw his saber at the sky. Yi Wuxuang said coldly, "Brother, here's the question. How did this saber appear on the spiritual medicine mountain?" That means that there's something wrong with the spiritual medicine mountain. Yi Chun's eyes flickered a few times. Subsequently, he summoned Yao Huayuan and asked directly while pointing at the Master Destruction saber, "Where did you guys get this saber?" According to the ancestral scripture, it's the item that the second founding ancestor of the spiritual medicine mountain had. Yao Huayuan said weakly. "Second founding ancestor?" Yi Chun frowned. "Does your so-called second-generation founding ancestor know saber techniques? Could it be that the old man in the illusion was him?" He could not help but guess. "No." However, Yao Huayuan shook his head and said with certainty, "The second-generation founding ancestor doesn't know any saber techniques." He doesn't even know how to cultivate, much less alchemy. Yi Chen's interest was piqued. I'm curious. How did he become the master of the spiritual medicine mountain if he doesn't know anything? Even Yi Wushuang could not help but look at Yao Huayuan. Yao Huayuan paused and said, "It said that the second-generation founding ancestor had a younger brother who used saber techniques. He was extremely talented, and the second-generation founding ancestor became the master of the spiritual medicine mountain because of him. However, that man rebelled. Nobody knows what happened to him, but he killed the second-generation founding ancestor, his parents, and his wife." Yao Huayuan looked rather unnatural as he spoke to this point. The incident was related to the spiritual medicine mountain's secret. Only the master of each generation had the right to know about it. Yichen said, "What happened then?" Yao Huayuan said slowly, "It caused a huge commotion back then. The Martial Alliance issued a kill order to hunt him down, but he killed all of them. Later on, the chief of the Martial Alliance fought him personally, but he still killed him with a swing of his saber. The entire martial Dao world was in a panic back then. Nobody was his match. He went missing later on. Some said that he was killed by a hidden expert, while some said that they saw him being killed by lightning with their own eyes. Some said that he became a monk." Yichen asked him to leave upon hearing that. Yichen asked him to leave after seeing that he really did not know anything else. He then looked at Yi Wushuang and said, "Clearly, this person disappeared because of Xiang Tian. So is he dead?" Yi Wushuang asked. "It's hard to say." Yichen shook his head lightly and said, "This man drew his saber at the sky, so he'll be punished by heaven. Theoretically, he'll definitely die. However, his saber intent is left behind. He even has a consciousness, so he doesn't look like he's dead." "Brother, if this man isn't dead, and you meet him in the future," Yi Wushuang said while raising his brows slightly. Yichen understood what he meant. That man was from the spiritual medicine mountain no matter what. Now that he had occupied the spiritual medicine mountain, he was on the opposite side of him. Moreover, he had broken his saber intent earlier, so there was no doubt that they were mortal enemies. Yichen chuckled softly as he thought to this point. "It doesn't matter even if he's not dead. His saber can't kill me, but my sword can. I hope he's not dead. If that's the case, I can compete with him to see if his saber or my sword is more powerful." Yi Wushuang's battle intent was high. As he was speaking, the Patriarch of Hell's voice came into Yi Chen's head through voice transmission. "Master, there's a big discovery. Come here now." The Patriarch sounded rather excited. "Let's go take a look," Yi Chen said to Yi Wushuang, and put the Master Destruction Saber away. He then ran out as the wind blew under his feet. "Mommy, come and catch up to me." Meng Meng slowed down. "You can't catch up to me." La la la. On a barren slope at the back of the spiritual medicine mountain, Meng Meng was playing hide-and-seek with Su Yuhan among the oil flowers on the mountain. Her bell-like laughter spread far and wide. A black puppy was lying before a stone wall at the moment. Its eyes were filled with excitement as it looked at the stone wall. If one were to take a closer look, they would notice that there was a faint hurricane flashing on the stone wall. There was a faint tunnel in the hurricane. A spatial tear. Never had he thought that there would be a spatial tear in a **TTY place like the spiritual medicine mountain. The Patriarch of Hell was cramping from laughing. Since there's a spatial tear, doesn't that mean that I can return to the cultivation world through the tear? The Patriarch was laughing and crying at the same time. God has mercy on me. I've had enough of this stupid place. I'm going back to look for Sister Fairy. We'll talk through the night. I don't want to be ordered around like a dog anymore. Little Yezi, I clearly remember everything you've done to me, your ancestor for that matter. Not only did you give me such an awful name like Cutie, but you even fed me dog food. You even stopped me from doing a great job." The Patriarch of Hell could not stop rolling his eyes. He secretly thought about how he should persuade Yi Chen to return to the cultivation world through the spatial tear with him. "That's right. When I return to the cultivation world, I'll find a sect of female cultivators and rape up to 1,000 female cultivators. After I recover my cultivation base, I'll beat Xiao Yezi until he calls me daddy. However, I must bring a few bags of dog food with me before I leave." At that moment, two figures ran over quickly. They were Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang. Yichen looked at the stone wall next to him by instinct. His expression froze immediately. A spatial tear? That's right. The Patriarch of Hell replied immediately. He then crossed his legs and stood like a human. He crossed his front paws before his chest and looked at Yichen arrogantly while swinging his legs. Xiao Yezi, your opportunity is here. Come back to the cultivation world with me. I'll forgive you for what you've done to me before. However, the prerequisite is that you have to remove the master-servant contract between me and your daughter. Then, kneel and beg me to take you in as my follower. Chapter 308. Yichen saw the Patriarch of Hell strolling with his arms on his waist while looking at him arrogantly. Yichen was stunned. Xiao Yezi, what are you waiting for? The Patriarch of Hell was pissed. Kneel before me now. You must know that I was a tribulation almighty in the past. I'll protect you when you return to the cultivation world with me. Are you rebelling? The corner of Yichen's lips twitched slightly. This dog has become arrogant recently. How dare he yell at me? That's right, I'm rebelling. The Patriarch of Hell wagged his tail and said hatefully, to tell you the truth, I've had enough of you. I'm a tribulation old monster, not a dog. How dare you feed me dog food? Forget it, the problem is that it's expired dog food. Boring. Yichen shook his head lightly and walked to the stone wall. The Patriarch of Hell was enraged. The old ancestor of the netherworld was furious. Little Yezi, do you understand dog language? Bah, it's human language. Yichen ignored him and lifted his eyes to look at the spatial tear inside. He could not help but frown. Why is there a spatial tear here? Damn it, I am going to kill you. The Patriarch of Hell charged at Yichen while clenching his teeth. However, Yichen's cold gaze and the great thundersword in Wu Shuang's hand responded. The elder ancestor shuddered and immediately became terrified. Master, I was wrong. That was what he said, but in its heart, it was furious. Xiao Yezi, just you wait. When I return to the cultivation world and recover my tribulation cultivation base, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. What did you do wrong? Yichen walked toward him step by step. Oh no, this devil is angry. The Patriarch's heart skipped a beat. He said while smiling immediately, Cutie, I shouldn't have said those things to you, Master. I was actually joking with you. Roar. Master, be gentle, be gentle. A moment later, the Patriarch was sent flying with a slap. The little girl, who was playing in the bushes, lifted her head to look at the sky. She saw a dog flapping its paws in the air. Eventually, it hit the ground hard. Mommy, Cutie flew. The little girl screamed. Yichen said with a forced smile after the Patriarch ran back. Are you trying to return to the cultivation world through this spatial rift? I don't dare. The Patriarch immediately shook his head like a rattle drum. Master, you are tall, mighty, brave, extraordinary, dignified, unparalleled, talented, loved by everyone. How could but face bear to leave you? Yichen smiled coldly and said, just say it if you want to go back. But let me ask you, can you resist the Void Rift? Patriarch Yellow Spring was stunned. That seems to be the case. The Patriarch was attached to a dog nearby. If he really entered the void crack, he would probably turn into ashes in an instant. Yichen said again, how do you know that the cultivation world is at the end of the spatial tear? Even if you can return to the cultivation world, how can you be sure that you can return to the original cultivation world? What will you do if you transmigrate to a lower plane than Earth? Patriarch Yellow Spring was completely dumbfounded. Yichen said again, also, do you have an instant fixing compass? The so-called instant fixing compass was a magic tool that could locate coordinates and guide directions. It was not easy to refine one. Plop! The Patriarch Yellow Spring fell onto the ground as if he had lost his parents. He was heartbroken. Master, you're right. I was wrong. Don't worry, I'll definitely stay by your side. How did you find this spatial tear? Yichen turned around and asked while looking at the stone wall. The Patriarch sobbed and said, when I came out earlier, I suddenly felt the need to pee, so I wanted to pee here. I found a faint formation wave on the stone wall. I found it after I dispelled it. He was a tribulation almighty in his past life after all. Naturally, he was skilled in formations. Now that he had a mastery stage spirit assembly cultivation base, it was a piece of cake for him to dispel an illusory formation. But why is there a spatial tear here? It seems like it's been here for a long time. Someone even set up an illusory formation to hide it. Yi Chun frowned slightly. The patriarch Yellow Spring said by instinct, "Master, do you think it's possible that someone for the cultivation world transmigrated to this world by accident and broke the space here?" Yi Chun and Yi Wushuang's expressions froze when they heard that. The first thing that came to their minds was that someone from the immortal world had come. Moreover, it was someone sent by Yi Chen's traitorous disciple. However, Yi Chun subsequently shook his head and said while smiling, "That's impossible. Since even you can break this formation, the person's cultivation base naturally can't be that high. His formation cultivation base isn't high either. In that case, it's impossible for him to survive in the spatial tear." The patriarch Yellow Spring thought about it and agreed with him. "Brother, in my opinion, since this spatial tear appeared in the spiritual medicine mountain, it must be related to the spiritual medicine mountain," Yi Wushuang said. Yichen could not help but squint. The spiritual medicine mountain. There were so many secrets here. First, there was the master destruction saber that contained saber intent. Now, there was this spatial tear that someone had hidden. Since that's the case, that old man, Yao Huayuan, must know about it. "Master, just you wait. I'll get Cutie for you to interrogate him right away." The patriarch Yellow Spring expressed his loyalty immediately. "No need." Yichen stopped him. "Yao Huayuan doesn't have much time left. With your attitude, he'll be scared to death. I'll ask him myself later, but I don't think he knows anything." He could not help but turn around to look at the spatial tear on the stone wall as he spoke to this point. "Before that, we must seal this spatial tear." He had to seal it. Indeed, there were many strange things in the sky. As soon as they entered this world through the tear, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Subsequently, Yi Chun got Yi Wushuang to get some refining materials from Yao Huayuan. He refined 2 sets of formations. One was to seal the spatial tear, while the other was a high-level illusion formation. The purpose of that was to prevent outsiders from discovering it. After he was done, he nodded in satisfaction. At that moment, Ming Ming ran over while staggering. She leaped into Yi Chen's embrace and said, "Daddy, let's play hide-and-seek, okay? Don't you have Mommy to play with you?" Yi Chun squatted down and touched the flower bud on her head. He then looked at Su Yuhan, who was far away. "Mommy's too dumb. I can't even find Ming Ming," the little girl said in disdain. Su Yuhan's face flushed upon hearing that. She walked over and glared at her angrily. "Who are you calling dumb? Mommy's not dumb. She's just not smart enough," the little girl said in all seriousness. Su Yuhan vented her anger on Yi Chun. "Look at what kind of daughter you've raised. She's starting to criticize me, her mother." Yi Chun was speechless. Just when he was going to speak, his phone rang. He picked it up and realized that it was a number from the northeast. He picked it up after some hesitation. Before he could speak, a voice that sounded like it was about to cry came from the phone. "Old Yi, help. Who are you?" Yi Chun failed to react at that moment. "It's me, Yang Tian. F*CKU. You've screwed me over." Chapter 309. After the battle between Yi Chun and Northern Devil Jiang in Jiangbei back then, Yang Tian wanted to walk on Yi Chen's path. However, Yi Chen thought that Yang Tian was not mature enough back then. He felt that bringing him to the cultivation path would harm him instead. However, he could not reject Yang Tian, so he came up with a problem. Within 3 months, Yang Tian had to walk from Jiangbei to Changbai Mountain in the northeast and return. During that period, Yang Tian could not spend money to take a car or a plane. It was impossible for a regular person to complete the journey within 3 months. However, Yang Tian agreed to it anyway. Looking at it now, it had been 2 months since he left. If not for the phone call, Yi Chun would not have recalled it at that moment. He was stunned when he heard that it was Yang Tian on the phone. Yi Chun was stunned. He said in between tears and laughter, "Oh, it's you. What happened? Where are you now?" "I'm at Gourd Island now, but I'm dying." Yi Chun looked serious upon hearing that. Yi Chun's expression turned serious. He looked at Su Yuhan and the rest before him and asked, "What exactly happened? Tell me slowly." I can't tell you everything in a short time. I offended the Cumaxian. He did something to my body and said that he'll kill me within 7 days. There was fear in Yang Tian's voice. What happened to him in the past 2 months was enough to write a book called Journey to the West, the first edition. Yichen said in his deep voice, "Where exactly are you now? Also, whose phone did you use to call me?" "I'm at a friend's house. My phone belongs to her too." Yang Tian was on the verge of tears as he said, "Old Yi, you have to save me. If you hadn't instigated me to come all the way to the northeast, I wouldn't have provoked Chumaxian. Also, Lil Hao is your godson. You can't calm down." Yichen took a deep breath in and comforted him. "Send me your exact location. I'll be there right away. Remember to keep in touch with me." Yang Tian hung up the phone after telling him the location. What happened? Su Yuhan could not help but ask. Yichen looked at her and sighed softly. "You know Yang Tian, don't you?" Su Yuhan nodded lightly and said while smiling, "I know. Wasn't he the one who spread the news when we were dating in university? I remember you guys were close back then." Yichen told her about what happened to Yang Tian earlier. He then said, "Yang Tian has offended a Chuma immortal in Liao province. Judging from his tone, I'm afraid it's going to be a big problem, so I can't just ignore it." In. Su Yuhan nodded and said considerately, "I know. It's fine. Go ahead. I'll bring Ming Ming back to Tianan first. I'll wait for you at home." "Yuhan, I'm sorry." Yichen could not help but grab her little hands. He said rather guiltily, "I promised you that I'd marry you in Tianan after I'm done with the Ghost Rider sect. I kept putting it off." "Fool." She was not used to his sudden flirting. She said angrily, "It doesn't matter if we do it sooner or later. Go save Yang Tian first. Nothing must happen to him." "Daddy, I want to go with you," Ming Ming said in a clingy manner while hugging Yichen's neck. "Ming Ming, be good. You can't go." Su Yuhan said with a straight face, "I'm going to save your Uncle Yang Tian, not to go sightseeing. Are you going to see Grandpa and Grandma with me? Don't you miss Grandpa and Grandma? Don't you want to be with me?" The little girl was a little conflicted to hear that. "But I really want to be with Daddy." Puffed. Yichen could not help but laugh out loud. He kissed her little cheeks and said, "Listen to me. I won't bring you with me this time. Go home with me and wait for me at home. I'll bring you lots of delicious food." The little girl's eyes lit up as soon as she heard about food. She was so happy that she revealed her little canine teeth. "Sure, Daddy. Remember what you said. You'll bring me lots of delicious food." "Brother, I'll go with you," Yu Wushuang said. "No need." Yichen shook his head. "Wushuang, go back to Tianan with your sister-in-law this time. Remember, your mission is to protect your sister-in-law and niece." Yi Wushuang hesitated to speak, but he eventually agreed to it. They returned to their residence. Yichen took out his phone and called Old Chun while Su Yuhan was carrying Ming Ming to dinner. "Yo, little Yi, this is your first time calling me." Old Chun was rather surprised. Yichen went straight to the point. "Old Chun, I wonder if you know anything about the northeastern Chuma immortals?" There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. Subsequently, Old Chin's hoarse voice came. "Why are you asking about that all of a sudden? A friend of mine offended the Chuma immortals." Yichen said. Old Chin hesitated and said, "Forget it. I know your character. It's not realistic to ask you to let it go. I can't explain it over the phone. I'll get someone to compile some information and send it to your email later." "Sure, thanks." Yichen hung up the phone. Soon, he received an email. He opened it and saw that it was information about the Chuma immortals. As the name suggested, Chuma immortals were immortals who chased horses. Immortals were usually animals with a certain level of cultivation. Such a profession mainly came from the northeast. Together with Maoshan in the south, they were called Mao in the south and Ma in the north. Due to the dense forests in the northeast, there were many old forests. Naturally, there would be many beings with intelligence in the deep forests. Meanwhile, immortals were mostly from the 5 immortals, namely Hu, Huang, Bai Willow, and Hui. Among them, Hu was a fox, Huang was a weasel, Bai was a hedgehog, Lu was a snake, and Hui was a rat. However, those who wanted to go against nature would always be envied by the heavens, especially animals. They would have to go through many trials on their cultivation journey, such as the boy barrier, the horse barrier, and so on. After these beings cultivated to a certain level, they would enter the world to do good deeds, to accumulate merit, or to accelerate their cultivation speed to avoid the heavenly tribulation. For example, they would treat illnesses, communicate with yin and yang, help people ask for rice, exorcise evil spirits, and so on. The way they entered the world to do good deeds was called chuma. In the north, it was called carrying a pole and holding the incense stick. In the south, it was called coming out of the shell, sitting down, and putting down the table. As these immortals could not transform into humans, they would usually choose someone to be their incense boy. That was why these incense boys were called chuma disciples. After the chuma disciples were done, the immortals would possess their bodies and use their bodies to do good deeds. There were 4 major immortal clans. Among the clans, the Golden Flower Cult Master, the Silver Flower Cult Master, the Tontian Cult Master, Great-Grandmother Husan, and Great-Grandfather Husan were the most famous. They were responsible for leading all the chuma immortals in the world. At this point, Yichen could not help but frown. Theoretically, the chuma immortals were people who were active in doing good deeds. Why did Yang Tian offend them? Moreover, the so-called immortal was going to kill him within 7 days? Chapter 310. After studying the Cumaxian's information, Yichun could not figure it out. Yichun could not figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. He tried calling Yang Tian directly, but nobody picked up. His heart could not help but sink. At that moment, Old Chen called and asked directly, "Little Yi, are you sure you're going to the northeast?" "That's right," Yi Chen said. He had to go to the northeast. Yang Tian was his brother, so he could not stand aside. Old Chen said while smiling, "Coincidentally, the country has a geographical expedition team that's going too. Why don't you guys go together?" "An expedition team?" Yi Chen frowned. "Old Chen, I have something important to attend to in the northeast this time. I'm afraid I can't bring anyone." "Don't reject it just yet." Old Chen said, "There's a northeasterner in the expedition team. He's proficient in the local shaman language, and the Cumaxian is a continuation of the shaman religion. It might be helpful to you if you bring him along." "Sure, get them to wait for me. I'll return to Beijing immediately." Yi Chen agreed after thinking about it for a while. That afternoon, Yi Chen left the spiritual medicine mountain with Su Yuhan, his daughter, and Yi Wushuang. However, before he left, he fixed the spiritual medicine mountain's protective formation and brought the giant medicine man with him. They headed straight to the provincial city in the off-road vehicle. This time, Su Yuhan sat in the passenger seat while carrying Meng Meng. She looked at the medicine man in the bamboo hat behind her in slight fear and asked in confusion, "Yi Chen, why did you bring this big guy along?" She had seen how powerful the medicine man was before. Moreover, the medicine man was tall, so she dared not sit next to him by instinct. "This is a puppet. It's very powerful. It's perfect as a fighter," Yi Chen said while smiling while driving. The medicine man had the cultivation base of a martial Dao master. Although he had no consciousness, it did not affect his combat strength at all. He did not have human emotions and desires. Yi Chen had almost crippled him earlier. Later on, he repaired him on the spiritual medicine mountain and refined him again. Now, he was completely obedient to him. Initially, he planned to leave the medicine man with Su Yuhan as her bodyguard. However, judging from Su Yuhan's reaction, she probably did not like him, so he kept him. Su Yuhan nodded and said while pursing her red lips, "So, how long will it take for you to come back from the northeast?" 7 or 8 days. Yi Chen chuckled softly. "Don't worry. I'll rush back as soon as I'm done with Yang Tian. You can wash up and wait for me at home." "Go to hell. You're not serious at all." Su Yuhan blushed and slapped him angrily. Yi Chen's driving speed was very fast. It only took him about 3 hours to get from Longnan to Ganzhou's provincial capital. He bought plane tickets for Su Yuhan, her daughter, and Yi Wushuang personally. Yi Chen called out to Su Yuhan before they parted. He opened his arms and said shamelessly, "Your husband, I, will be away for a few days. Can't you give me something to remember before we part?" How could Su Yuhan not understand what he meant? She blushed and walked over to kiss Yi Chen's cheek after some hesitation. She said while clenching her teeth, "Are you happy now? You be asterisk starred? Yes, I'm very satisfied. Don't worry, I definitely won't wipe it off, Yi Chen said with a smile as he touched the lipstick mark on his face. Daddy, I want a kiss too. Meng Meng ran over and kissed Yi Chen's cheek too. Yi Wushuang, who was far away, looked rather unnatural as he mumbled, "Is this dog food?" After sending them on the plane, Yi Chen put the jeep away into his storage ring while no one was paying attention. He rode on a sword gleam and headed to Beijing with the medicine man at the same time. Beijing, at the entrance of the Yanshan Geographical Survey Agency. An SUV was parked by the roadside. There was a pretty lady with a cold aura sitting in the passenger seat. She wore a pair of black frame glasses and was approximately 27 or 28 years old. The lady was Di Jing. She graduated from the University of London with a double doctorate in geography, human, and nature. She was currently a professor at a famous geographical survey agency in the country. However, impatience was written all over her face at the moment. Meanwhile, there was an old man in hiking attire sitting next to her. The old man had white hair on his temples, but he looked energetic. At that moment, a tall, young man in black martial arts attire walked out of the agency. He asked, after checking the time, "Di Jing, is that person not here yet?" "No." Di Jing frowned slightly. The tall, young man frowned upon hearing that. The tall young man frowned, feeling rather upset. Subsequently, he looked at the old man in hiking attire next to him. "Old Shun, is the person you mentioned coming or not? It's already 5 p.m. Don't delay our departure. Dai Wei, let's wait a little longer." The old man in hiking attire, named Old Shun, took a puff of his pipe and chuckled. "We still have to wait? It's going to be dark soon." Dai Wei was getting more and more annoyed. What exactly is the higher-ups thinking? Are they sending someone here at the last minute to drag us down? All right, Dai Wei, stop complaining. There's nothing Old Shun can do since such a person is here all of a sudden, Di Jing said rather irritably. They were going to Gourd Island's Thunder Valley for an inspection because there was an unsolved mystery in the valley. It was said that thunder would rumble in the valley when the weather was calm. Moreover, when it rained, the concave pebbles on the Thunder Valley's ground would form the water curtain cave wonder. They had been preparing for that for a few months. Just when they were about to depart, the higher-ups suddenly told them that someone was going to Gourd Island too. They even got them to welcome him. The annoyance in her grew as she thought to this point. Dai Wei looked at Di Jing's voluptuous body with a burning desire. He explained while smiling, "Di Jing, I'm not complaining. I'm just a little annoyed. Isn't he dragging us down by bringing a burden?" Old Shun, who had been smoking, paused and said, "That Mr. Yi isn't a burden. I heard from the higher-ups that he's quite capable. They even asked us to listen to his advice along the way." "You're pretty capable? Don't tell me that he's also an experienced geography expert." Di Jing looked at Old Shun by instinct. She could accept it if that was the case. Old Shun shook his head. "I don't think so. I heard that this Mr. Yi is very young. He looks like he's in his 30s. Dai Wei scoffed before he was done speaking. How dare he say that he's capable when he's not even 30? Let's not talk about Di Jing and I. Among everyone here, Old Shun is the most experienced and knowledgeable. Why should he listen to that brat? There was something that he did not say. He would be the first to be upset. Di Jing shook her head lightly. She was disappointed. It seemed like it was another person with connections who came out of nowhere. He must be following them to gain experience. At that moment, a calm voice came. "I'm sorry to have kept everyone waiting." Chapter 311. I'm sorry to have kept you guys waiting. Di Jing, Dai Wei, and the rest looked over by instinct. Di Jing, Dai Wei, and the rest subconsciously looked over and saw a skinny young man walking over. The young man's facial features were ordinary, and his clothes were ordinary. Meanwhile, there was a man who was over 8 meters tall following behind him. However, they could not see his face because he was wearing a bamboo hat. At that moment, Di Jing and Dai Wei were stunned. Is he the one we're waiting for? Old Shin got out of the car immediately and greeted him while smiling. "May I know if you're Mr. Yi?" Yi Chen nodded and smiled apologetically. "You must be Old Shun. I'm sorry. I ran into something on the way here, so I was delayed." "Don't worry about it." Old Shin waved and led Yi Chen over in a friendly manner. He pointed at Di Jing and Dai Wei and introduced, Mr. Yi, let me introduce you. This is the beauty of our team, Di Jing. She's also an expert. Old Shun even joked as he spoke to this point. Don't underestimate her just because she's a girl. Di Jing has a double doctorate. Hi, I'm Di Jing. Di Jing nodded calmly. However, the disappointment inside of her was growing. Before this, she thought Yi Chun was some rich kid who was here to gain experience. However, now that they had met, she felt that Yi Chun did not look like a rich kid at all. He was as ordinary as he could be. Sigh. What exactly are the higher-ups thinking? She sighed to herself. Yi Chun smiled lightly. Yi Chun, Mr. Yi, this is Dai Wei. He's currently one of the members of our investigation team. He's also the security consultant. Old Shun proceeded to introduce, Dai Wei used to be a retired soldier. He has great skills, but he's a little arrogant. Compared to Di Jing's politeness, Dai Wei was much colder. He merely nodded at Yi Chun as a greeting. Subsequently, he looked at the medicine man standing next to Yi Chun and frowned. Who's this? He's my bodyguard. You guys can call him Tower. Yi Chun gave a simple introduction. Yi Chun gave it a simple introduction. After fixing the giant, he gave a new name. Dai Wei had disdain in his eyes. He said, Mr. Yi, we're going on an investigation, not a vacation. Don't you think it's inappropriate for you to do that? Di Jing furrowed her brows. Old Shun changed the topic immediately. Shouty, since everyone's here, let's depart. He got into the back seat of the Jeep after saying that. Yi Chun led Iron Tower to the back seat as well. Iron Tower was just tall enough to sit down. Fortunately, Yi Chun had shrunk Iron Tower's body earlier. Dai Wei sat in the driver's seat and drove on the highway after he started the engine. Perhaps it was a little dull in the car. Old Shun took the initiative to ask, May I know why are you going to Haludio, Mr. Yi? To meet a friend. Yi Chun smiled. In the end, he did not tell them about Yang Tian offending a Chuma immortal. He did not want to scare them. Hearing those words, Old Shun was slightly stunned. Di Jing, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, shook her head. You're just going to meet a friend. You can't take the high-speed rail or even a plane, but you insist on traveling with us and make us wait for so long. Dai Wei pricked up his ears as he drove. He laughed coldly and said, Are you treating our car as a free ride? Yi Chun smiled and said nothing. Sensing that the atmosphere was a little depressing, Old Shun mediated immediately. It's all right. We've been bored along the way. It's good to have someone to talk to. Yi Chun said while smiling, Oh yeah, Old Shun, does anyone in your team know how to speak shaman? As soon as he said that, Di Jing, who was sitting in the passenger seat, suddenly turned around and looked at him. She seemed a little surprised. Why do you ask? I was just asking, Yi Chun said. Di Jing looked at him deeply and said, Mr. Yi, if there's no need, I advise you not to understand these things. Why? Yi Chun was curious. Di Jing took a deep breath and said, Shaman is the language of shamanism, and shaman is the pronunciation in the Tungus language. When translated into Chinese, it means shaman. I've heard of it too. Old Shin nodded and took over the topic. It said that shamanism originated from the primitive society. It's a folk belief that came from people's worship of nature and all living things. Rumor has it that they have the ability to control weather, language, dream interpretation, astrology, and even go to heaven and hell. That's right, Di Jing said with a serious expression. The godly dancing in some areas now comes from shamanism. This organization is strange. They can perform witchcraft to kill you as soon as they know your name and age. And then? Yichin said calmly. Di Jing said, Until now, shamanism still exists in many places. They're mainly in the Northeast. That's why I advise you not to offend them when you get there. Otherwise, you'll lose your life. Yichin gave a short response, not really bothered. Those beings could not threaten him at all. Di Jing was secretly annoyed to see that he was not surprised at all. She scoffed and subsequently turned her head away. The reason why she told Yi Chun so much was that her ancestors were from the shaman religion. Therefore, she knew how terrifying the shaman religion was. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Don't blame me if something happens. Dai Wei said without even turning his head. Di Jing, Since this Mr. Yi doesn't believe in superstition, it's useless no matter what we say. It's fine as long as he doesn't drag us into it. Mr. Yi, what Di Jing said makes sense. There are many mysterious powers that we don't understand in this world. Just because we don't know about them doesn't mean that they don't exist, Old Shen advised. Yi Chen secretly found it funny. He glanced at him and said, "It seems like Old Shen knows a little about them. Could mysterious powers be more mysterious than cultivation?" Yes, Old Shen sighed softly. Our magnificent China has been passed down for thousands of years. I wonder if there are many things that science can't explain. For example, Laozi rode a green ox out of Hanga Pass, and purple energy swept across 300 miles. He ascended after leaving half of the Tao Te Ching. That's just a legend, Yi Chen said while smiling. Even as a cultivator, he could not confirm if there was a mythical civilization in China, such as the Three Pure Ones, the Jade Emperor, and Queen Mother. Then, how do you explain the Tao Te Ching and the Book of Changes That King when left behind? These two books are just too mysterious. Old Shen shook his head and proceeded to say, "Let's not talk about the distant ones. Let's talk about the recent ones. For example, the Yangtze River incident in 1954, the Chengdu zombie incident in 1995, the Inko falling dragon incident in 1934, and the rumor of 30 degrees north latitude." 30 degrees north latitude? Yi Chen was stunned. He had heard about the few incidents that happened earlier, especially the Chengdu zombie incident. It had spread throughout the entire southwest region and covered a couple of provinces. Yi Chen had just started elementary school back then. After the incident happened, he stayed at home and dared not go to school. He was afraid that the zombies would suck his blood. However, it was his first time hearing about 30 degrees north latitude. Chapter 312. He looked into Yi Chen's eyes. Old Shen took a deep breath and said slowly, 30 degrees north latitude is a mysterious and strange line of latitude. This area has always been a disaster area for tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanoes. He paused as he spoke to this point and proceeded. What's more strange is that the Bermuda Triangle that's known as the Death Triangle, the Egyptian pyramids, the world's highest peak, Mount Everest, the Sphinx, the Yangtze River, the Nile River, and the Mississippi River are all located on this line of latitude precisely. Di Jing could not help but interrupt upon hearing that. Di Jing couldn't help but interject. I've read an explanation in a book. It said that the Egyptian pyramids were built by aliens, and this latitude line is the door to another dimension. That's why there are so many wonders. You can't believe everything that the book says, but you have to believe it too. Old Shen shook his head lightly and said, "Anyway, there are many things waiting for us to discover and uncover. It's also the mission of our geographical investigation team. However, I don't think we'll be able to see it in our generation." Old Shen, have you ever thought that you'll find out that the world you live in is so small one day? Yi Chen suddenly said, for example, humans can unlock more potential, move mountains, and fill seas. They can even pursue immortality. You're getting more and more ridiculous. Dai Wei scoffed. If humans can really move mountains, wouldn't the billions of people in the world be in chaos? Besides, if everyone is immortal, will the earth still be able to bear it? Old Shen is talking to you about something that actually exists, but you're talking about this. Di Jing shook her head. Yi Chen smiled calmly and did not explain. Old Shen, on the other hand, said while seeming to be in deep thought, "What Mr. Yi said is possible, but it's too far away. I've heard rumors about Kunlun before. It's said that Kunlun is the queen mother of the West Palace. Many mysterious things have happened in recent years. For example, someone saw a man in flames flying out of the forest with his own eyes. Also, a Tibetan bell goat made a bunch of lions surrender, and a female monkey gave birth to a baby boy who could talk. Old Shen, someone's confused. And so are you," Dai Wei said while pointing at the mulberry. The legend of Kunlun is just a legend after all. The reason why there's so many rumors is purely because of the ignorance of the local people. Coupled with the media hype, it's never been proven. Maybe I'm really confused. Old Shen laughed out loud and did not continue the topic. Yi Chen's expression changed slightly. He was interested in Kunlun. When he had returned to Earth, he had landed on the ancient altar of Mount Tai. In other words, it was the ancient altar that had led him to this realm. Mount Tai was known as the head of the 5 sacred mountains. For thousands of years, it had left behind too many legends. Confucius climbed Mount Tai and conquered the world. Secondly, the emperors of all dynasties had a long-cherished wish, which was to hold a ceremony on Mount Tai. For example, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. Naturally, that ancient sacrificial altar had been passed down from ancient times. Since Mount Tai was so mysterious, Kunlun, which was the #1 sacred mountain in China, would naturally not be inferior. As he was thinking about this, the sky gradually darkened, and the car entered a small town. Dai Wei parked the car by the roadside and said after turning his head, "Old Shun, it's getting dark. Moreover, the car is running out of gas. Why don't we spend the night here and continue our journey tomorrow?" "But is there a hotel here?" Di Jing furrowed her brows and looked around. After all, it was just a small town. She didn't think it was safe. As if sensing her worry, Dai Wei smiled confidently. "Don't worry. Nothing will happen. Even if something does happen, you still have me, right?" He glanced at Yi Chun and Iron Tower Riley as he spoke to this point. He said in a strange tone, "Moreover, there's Mr. Yi and his bodyguard." "All right then," shouted I. "You've been driving for a few hours. You can rest for a night." Old Shin nodded and finally made up his mind. After that, the few of them continued to look for a few more hotels, only to find that they were all full. Finally, they found a small hotel near the outskirts of the city. There seemed to be a funeral in front of the house. There was a black and white photo hanging in the room on the first floor. The photo was of a pretty woman. Judging from her appearance, she was less than 30 years old when she died. The hotel owner was a middle-aged man with a birthmark on his face and a mouth full of yellow teeth. He looked at Yi Chun and the rest after Dai Wei told him the purpose of their visit. He said after some hesitation, "We can let you guys stay here, but we only have 3 rooms left." As soon as he said that, Di Jing's expression changed instantly. There were a total of 5 of them, including a single lady like her. How could 3 rooms be enough for them? The hotel owner left a sentence for them to think about it, and then left. "It's simple." Dai Wei smiled and said, "I'll stay in 1 room, Di Jing will stay in 1 room, and Old Shin will stay in 1 room. As for Brother Yi and your bodyguard, you can sleep in my SUV if you don't mind." Di Jing thought that the suggestion was great, but she still thought it was inappropriate, so she did not say anything at the moment. Yichen took a good look at the small hotel. Just when he was going to speak, Old Shun, who was standing aside, said, "How about this? Xiaodai and Xiaodai will stay in 1 room, and Mr. Yi and I will stay in 1 room. I'll sleep on the floor." Just when Dai Wei was going to agree to it after hearing what Old Shin said, Yichun suddenly said, "Are you guys sure you guys want to stay in this small hotel? If you trust me, it's best that you guys don't stay here. I'll drive, and we'll continue to the north." "What do you mean?" Dai Wei thought he was complaining about the hotel, so he said with a grim expression, "It's not like you didn't see that. We've searched the entire town, but this is the only hotel we've found." "Dai Wei, I think Mr. Yi is right too. Why don't we continue driving? We'll be fine when we arrive at the county town." Surprisingly, Di Jing was on Yi Chen's side. She could not help but look at the morning hall as she spoke. Her expression was rather grim. "Moreover, there's a funeral going on here. So, that's what you guys are afraid of?" Dai Wei scoffed. "Isn't it just dead people? What's there to be afraid of? When I was a soldier, I've seen countless dead people. I can understand why a girl like Di Jing is afraid. But, Mr. Yi, you 2 men are also afraid. Aren't you too timid?" Yi Chen frowned. "All right, Mr. Yi Xiaodai, let's just stay here for the night. We'll depart in the morning." Old Shin decided in a straightforward manner. Subsequently, they found the hotel owner. After paying for the room and asking for some hot water, they took the hotel owner's key and went to the 2nd floor of the hotel. There were not many rooms on the 2nd floor. There were approximately 10 of them. As soon as they arrived at the corridor, they saw an old lady squatting at the door of a room by the window at the end of the corridor. There was a metal basin before the old lady. She could not stop throwing paper money into it, filling the corridor with smoke. Dai Wei's expression changed because their room happened to be the 3 rooms before the old lady. He charged over without saying anything and shouted fiercely, "Who are you? Who told you to burn paper money here?" The old woman was startled by him. She fell to the ground and stammered, "I'm burning Joss paper for my granddaughter. My granddaughter died in this room."